fairly similar temperatures, still feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching 18 degrees Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just coming up to 12 o'clock on Friday the 10th of October. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Akua.
Now we're going to take you live to Manchester, where Ricky Hatton, the heavyweight boxer, the legend, has his funeral is underway now. We're just setting up our cameras there because Ricky Hatton's coffin is just arriving. The world champion, of course, the boxing legend, who passed away sadly this year. An untimely death.
Well, it really was. I mean, he was a former world champion. He was very sadly found dead at his home in Hyde at the age of just 46, which he was 46 last month. Those who are likely to be attending his funeral, the boxing legend Frank Bruno, also Tyson Fury and Oasis frontman Liam Gallagher among the guests there. I had the pleasure of interviewing Claire Sweeney, who was his ex-partner, very lovely woman. Presumably she'll be there as well. Wayne Rooney is another one of those that will be there too. Now, Ricky Hatton, one of the reasons is because, of course, Ricky Hatton was a lifelong Manchester City fan, and he is known as the pride of Hyde in his hometown where he grew up on Hattersley Council Estate.
Yeah, just incredibly sad when to lose someone at that age. But clearly a huge show of support there in Manchester from not just celebrities, Tyson Fury, Wayne Rooney, Liam Gallagher, but also just so many people, local people from Manchester who've come out to line the streets to show their support for a local boy who's achieved so much in so few years on this earth. A really moving moment there as the coffin arrives outside the cathedral.
Of course, Ricky was a former welterweight world champion, quite an inspiration, and lots of people have come out and said some amazing things about him. I mean, former world heavyweight boxing champion Frank Bruno arrived there too. And he has previously told how his life had been enriched by his friendship with Ricky Hatton. He said, this is from Frank, he said, there will never be another Ricky or anyone like him, and at this time I share the shock and upset of losing what I consider to be a great fighter, a friend, and an amazing human being.
Well, those in attendance that have been spotted so far include Sean Ryder of the Happy Mondays. Andrew Flintoff and his wife Rachel Woods have also been spotted. Colleen and Wayne Rooney are in the crowds, as well as Tyson Fury, who was spotted a little earlier on. This is all being held at Manchester Cathedral, a grand and ornate place that is the host of many celebrity occasions and funerals. But Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, has also turned up in the last few minutes, arriving there at Manchester Cathedral for this moving ceremony, and I'm sure it will be moving.
Well, he was very much loved, and obviously such a great star in the world of boxing. I mean, Nigel Benn is there, Tony Bellew, Scott Welsh, Fraser Clark. These were amongst mourners gathering there. One of the things that Ricky Hatton was quite well known for was that his fights were regularly soundtracked by a brass band, which followed him loyally around the globe. And apparently the brass band are here today as well. So I don't know, maybe they'll play out a tribute to him or something. But it is very sombre occasion, but, you know, such an incredible human being who achieved so much and taken so early as well.
Now, we should say for those listening on the radio, we are seeing the coffin leave the hearse now. It's a vibrant, bright blue colour with flowers on top, a an arrangement of white flowers just being carried out of the hearse as we speak, making its last journey towards Manchester Cathedral, a cathedral that is star-studded today with sportsmen, with figures from the media, from celebrity all around, and the crowds there, not just the celebrity, the crowds of ordinary Mancunians cheering and clapping Ricky Hatton's coffin there as it makes its way into the cathedral. Just a huge, huge roar of support from the crowd there. This coffin, light blue, the colour, of course, of Manchester City Football Club, of which Ricky Hatton himself was a prominent supporter.
He was also, I actually remember this particular, from the archives of, do you remember Only Fools and Horses?
Yes.
He had a little appearance there. And actually today, the car is there today. It is a centrepiece of part of the procession as it moves from Manchester, which, you know, he really did make a real impression on people, didn't he? It's very, very sad, really. Just such a shocking news, and so suddenly as well.
All far too soon. Well, the coffin has now made its way inside Manchester Cathedral. The service will be getting going in the next minutes. But of course, Manchester bidding its final farewell there to one of its most loved sporting heroes, as two-weight world champion Ricky Hatton the city bids its final farewell to Ricky Hatton, a local lad, done good.
He did good, didn't he? And made such an impression on so many who he has touched through his life, all attending that funeral.
Well,
we'll bring you more news on that as it happens.
Absolutely. But there is more news today, of course. And breaking in the last couple of hours, the Israeli military says that a ceasefire is now in effect after the Israeli Defence Force has pulled back from parts of Gaza.
Well, this comes as Donald Trump declared peace in the Middle East after Israel and Hamas signed a deal to end the war. This is what the US president had to say.
Last night we reached a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East, something that people said was never going to be done. We ended the war in Gaza and really, on a much bigger basis, created peace. And I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process. I'd rather not tell you what they have to do to get them. There are places you don't want to be.
Well, that's what the president had to say yesterday. Of course, he's expected in the region in the coming days. But just how quickly might these hostages be released? And is this really the end of the war? Well, our Home and Security editor, Mark White, is with us here in the studio. Mark, what more do we know?
Well, we're in the tentative first steps of this 20-point peace plan. Hopefully we can look at some images, actually, of Gaza, live images looking at that enclave today. And those are the most incredible scenes. The ceasefire, before the ceasefire had even come into effect, people just streaming back towards their homes in Gaza. Thousands of people lining that route along the shores of the Mediterranean, heading to, of course, what will be for many either badly damaged or completely destroyed homes. But the rebuilding and regeneration of Gaza is much further down the road here. What we need to ensure happens, and what the mediators will be doing their level best to ensure happens, is that they stay on course with this 20-point peace plan. They get the first hurdle overcome, and that first hurdle, of course, is the release of those hostages now. We've got the ceasefire announced by Israel. Israel has begun withdrawing IDF forces back to a pre-arranged line. They'll still control about 50% of Gaza, but will withdraw further as this process continues, hopefully. and then it's 72 hours that Hamas have to release those hostages who are still alive, a bit longer to release the hostages that are now deceased, about 28 of them, because it might be just more difficult to try to locate the remains and repatriate the remains. But then we're on the course to moving into the next phases of this peace plan, which will, of course, be the disarmament of Hamas, the setting up of this interim administration, what role, if any, Hamas will have. It's unlikely that Israel will countenance Hamas having any real role in this. But of course, Hamas has said that it will only relinquish power to a Palestinian-led administration. But it's difficult to see how that's going to be the case, because we know the interim administration is going to be made up of people from some of the Arab countries in the region that are now invested in this process as well. And will include others, like former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, as unpalatable as that seems to be amongst the Hamas leadership. But going forward, these are all obstacles that will have to be overcome one at a time. But there is an awful lot of sort of goodwill in the region in terms of the hope that there will be a lasting peace there. And there is obviously tremendous hope, both in Gaza and in Israel, that this can actually take hold. 2 years is an awful long time for the death and destruction that people have seen.
All right. Well, Mark White, thank you very much. That's our Home and Security Editor, Mark White.
And
what's joining us?
Well, I was just going to say what mesmerising pictures we saw just some moments ago with...
this is Hostage Square.
This is Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. But we were moments ago looking at Gaza, the shoreline, the waves crashing onto what could be what should in many ways be a golden beach, a place of relaxation and joy, and just seeing...
Yeah.
Seeing the movement of people there, I mean, it's transfixing how this could be a move back to normality after so long. Not just the 2 years, not just the 2 years of this war, but actually the 2 decades of Hamas control.
Well, actually, if you take it further back to the whole hostility between the Palestinians and the Israelis and the whole historical context of all of it, where every time you say to someone, yes, but it started on October the 7th, they go, no, it started in 1948, no, it started here, and they keep going back and back. Yeah. Maybe with a bit of hope, this is actually an actual new beginning where we can literally just wipe the slate clean and just start again. Well, let's speak to former British Army spokesperson Major Mike Shearer, who joins us now. Mike, welcome. Mike, what happens now? Because people are... You would have known about conflicts and when they end. What happens now? As people are coming back, we pray the hostages are returned and this follows through. But what happens now? Because it's like a lull, a void. What happens to these people that are all... What would normally happen in after a battle?
Well, I think we've got to put this against the backdrop of reality. Look, Trump's 20-point plan may well survive first contact. But what does that mean? It means Hamas, who, let's remember, is an uncivilized enemy and a prescribed terror group, must capitulate to the war aims to Israel. Now, I do believe that this first part of the plan will succeed. So I think we're all very much hoping to see the hostages return to Israel. But thereafter, it is fraught with difficulty. When I say that they're an uncivilized enemy, they do not adhere to rules as a normal enemy would. That said, Trump has pulled off a supreme act of diplomatic and political gymnastics to get all the Arab states to agree his plan. And if Hamas doesn't maintain its discipline, and I'm sorry to be the harbinger of bad news, I don't know that they will be able to endure that, then perhaps at least all the other Arab states will give Israel a bye to finish the job properly.
Well, Mike, isn't this the crucial part of the plan, that it's not just Hamas and Israel. We don't just have to take the word of Hamas at face value. Hamas has only been able to maintain its grip over the Strip over the course of the last 2 decades because it's had billions upon billions of dollars of funding from countries in the West, but also from the Middle Eastern states. Now, if the Middle Eastern states are saying, Hamas, you've got to go, we're not going to support you anymore, we're not going to put you up in your hotels in Qatar, we're not going to give you your billionaire's lifestyle, you sort of leaders of Hamas. If there's no longer any support from the region, and instead we have this board of peace involving, yes, Tony Blair and Donald Trump, amazingly, but also Arab leaders too. If that's the genuine governance of Gaza going forward, I mean, that's a hugely positive step.
Well, I think it is. But the problem, as you point out, is Hamas. I mean, they are a radical terrorist group. Now, it would appear on the face of the plan that they are going to cede all their war objectives in order for Israel to win all their war objectives. I'm sorry, I don't know that this grouping has the discipline and the political bandwidth amongst its own people to see that promise secured. Look, they've done an amazing job in the...
But Mike,
yes.
They don't have any choice. Just as Tom said, literally the entire Arab world has said no. Even Iran aren't prepared to help them after Donald Trump showed them a show of strength by bombing what he thought were nuclear facilities. So Hamas literally do not have a leg to stand on, and they are all dispersed now. They're not an organised group, and we know the leaders are harboured in Qatar, and they'll get a pass, so they won't be tried for any sort of crimes. And I presume if they're doing that with Hamas, they'll also do that with Benjamin Netanyahu, because that wouldn't be fair. So they've got nothing left. So they have to. This isn't really... I don't believe they're giving it a choice. I think they've been given an option.
Again, I go back to the fact that these are radicalized terrorists. You cannot destroy an ideology with a bullet unless you're doing it absolute. Look, Israel can win all its war aims by expelling Hamas and getting them out of their country. But the reality is that Hamas know that they have a lot of political will with them. Let's not forget the UK and our delinquent Prime Minister, France, Canada et al. Were suckered into giving them Palestine recognition. Because it's all done on a crude body count and a competition of victimhood. This is, I'm afraid, the pygmy politicians that we have today who aren't bothered to read the history and understand. Israel has never committed one war crime as an organized grouping here in Gaza. They have stuck to the law of armed conflict. And this crude body count that has won the favor, I'm afraid, of Hamas to say, look how badly we're being treated, has, I'm afraid, pulled the wool over the UK, France, Canada, and other people. So they will hang on to things like that. The UK and France and Canada, who have recognized the Palestinian state in the UN, have not done Israel any favors here.
And yet, Mike, if we're to follow the logic of that, with you saying that Hamas is going to give up all of its sort of war aims and Israel's going to win all of its war aims, I'm not sure. Perhaps that's true. Perhaps between us three, perhaps that's true. But to Hamas, what was the war aim of Israel? To Hamas, the war aim of Israel was different than what Israel believed its war aim was. To Hamas, the war aim of Israel was genocide. Right? They genuinely believe...
I don't think...
I think you've got Hamas leadership that genuinely believes Israel wanted to kill every man, woman and child in Gaza. Therefore stopping the war...
No, I don't think they thought that.
But hang on, follow the logic, though.
No, because you saw how Israel would warn the civilians. Hamas were playing almost like a PR game to make Israel look like the enemy. I think it's the other way around. Hamas have said that they want to kill all the Jews. Hamas have said that.
Look, I don't believe... Sorry, Mike. I don't believe that Israel set out to cause a genocide. But I do believe people in Gaza believe that Israel wanted to cause a genocide.
Guys,
therefore,
I don't think they believe that.
and therefore, Mike, couldn't that be a useful lever with which to extract Hamas because they believe they've got a victory?
Well, I don't believe they, for 1 minute, think they have a victory. Look, the law of armed conflict, namely necessity, proportionality, distinction, and precaution. The one that people get wrapped around the axle about is proportionality, because I mentioned a moment ago, a crude body count makes Israel look like the bad guys. When Israel has gone out of its way, time and time again, to ensure that the innocent civilians were well looked after, they've gone beyond any army that I've ever seen in the past to minimize collateral damage. Now, if we just stick cold-bloodedly to proportionality, the aim of Hamas was the destruction of every single Jew in Israel. That's 9 million people. Now, even if the Israelis wanted to kill every Gazan, which they didn't, by the way, that's 2.1 million, still makes it proportional. But again, that's not what Israel were about.
Exactly.
No, but it matters what Hamas thinks.
No, it doesn't, because Hamas just were playing a PR game all along, is what I can see. Major Mike Shearer, we do have to leave it there. Always a pleasure to talk to you. No, I absolutely believe that those people in Gaza knew that they were being helped by the Israelis, but they weren't prepared to play fair. I think it was just terrible. I'm glad it's over.
Well, let's hope so, and we'll see more, of course, throughout the show as this story develops. So let's cross back to Manchester now, Manchester Cathedral, where our very own national reporter Jack Carson is, of course, for the funeral of the boxing legend Ricky Hatton. Jack, we saw Ricky's coffin go in there, sky blue in the colours of Manchester City. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, his beloved football club, Manchester City, even the flowers in one of the hearses are that same colour. And after today's funeral service, the Etihad Stadium, where Manchester City, of course, play their home games, is where the procession will continue. It's been a 10-mile in total procession, all the way from Hyde, where, of course, he lived and grew up and was such an integral part at the heart of that community. It's where he built his gym, where he drunk with friends, and where, as one person put it to me, he ate kebabs with him because he was the people's champion. It's what so many people have told me this morning, that he was so proud to be from this part of the world, didn't want to hide it, so proud to have started his boxing training in a pub cellar, and then trained in a gym above a carpet shop. And you can tell the love that people of Manchester and people from Hyde had for Ricky Hatton, because here they are, they're outside Manchester Cathedral right now listening in to this funeral service. Many of them here, as you can see, behind the hearse that he was, of course, brought to the cathedral in this beautiful Rolls Royce with some roses which members of the public have thrown on the front of that hearse, and people here listening in to the funeral service, which is being played over some loudspeakers. The funeral service started with the congregation singing Jerusalem, quite fitting for somebody who is so proud to be a British world boxing champion. Of course, that famous fight versus Zoo, one of the best British boxing matches in history, really. You know, Ricky Hatton was one of the greats, and his legacy will not only be, the boxing, and the gym that he started in the community. He was very open from 2023 in a documentary about his own struggles with depression, and he, in an interview just days before he died, spoke about how excited he was for the future to, embark on this new journey of helping the next generation of boxing talent come through, but also, of course, work with those who may well, like he had done in the past, be struggling with his mental health. We spoke to a lifelong friend of Ricky, Rob Brearley. Here's what he told us earlier on.
Oh, just a real man of the people. I've been privileged to know him for 40 years. Went to primary school with him. Best friends with his brother, godfather to his brother's children, and just a man of the people. Yeah, he was an absolute amazing boxer, 4-time world champion, but he was also just one of the lads. In the pub, in the Cheese, in G Cross, the Queen had, in the gym here. there was no airs and graces about him. He'd have time for anyone. Fans from around the world, even last night, people from Ireland that had travelled to watch him in Vegas, coming to pay their respects, and they had countless stories about how much time he had for them, and that was him all over, and that's why we've got what we've got today, you know, a real fitting tribute and send-off for him.
Exactly, this is a send-off that he deserves, and the community here in Manchester are giving him the send-off that he deserved. And you know, his family in tribute after he passed away a few weeks ago, saying that he had a heart as big as his smile. And of course, they, in that private ceremony, are remembering him now, and thousands gathering here in Manchester to do the same.
Jack Carson, thank you very much. Yeah, it seems to be the same thing. People consistently are saying there was only one Ricky Hatton. And there's one tribute from a friend and trainer, Glenn Eunice, who said, we all grew up wanting to be Ricky Hatton, so then in the end it was mad that the guy I grew up wanting to be became a friend. Wow. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Oh, bless him.
Well, I'll have more on that, of course, throughout the programme. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and lots more still to come.
Nearly 25,000 pupils forced out of private schools since Labour came to power. Yep, Bridget Phillipson. New figures raise fresh doubts over the government's VAT raid, but after the break...
Sir Keir Starmer told to come clean on Chinese influence in Britain after his national security advisor reportedly blocked a major Whitehall report into Beijing's spying. Could this have collapsed the trial of two alleged Chinese spies?
Could this be perhaps the tail end of Keir Starmer? All that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Are you panicking when you're in Northern Ireland when you go out and about because there is a lack of chargers?
Well, listen, I'm really pro-EV, and we've had the odd issue with broken EV chargers, particularly yesterday at both Ballymoney at Beasties and also over at Dunsilley. We had issues with chargers, but the charging infrastructure is used very rarely. My mother, for example, she has overnight charging at home. She's never used a public charger, and she's had the car for 3 years.
Yeah. So
if you've got that domestic overnight charging, it's cheap. It's very affordable if you buy a 2-year-old EV, and they are absolutely the way forward. I'm a Yorkshireman. I don't like parting with my brass. I want to get cheap motoring, and for less than a penny a mile and a car for less than 20 grand to start with, you know, it sounds a bit blasé saying £20,000, but relative to what these cars are new, they're incredible value for money, and we're seeing mass adoption. There's a garage in Richmond in North Yorkshire that sells more than half of the cars they sell are electric vehicles, and that's in a rural Dales area. So it's about having that domestic overnight charging and not having to rely on public infrastructure.
Danny, where it doesn't convince me at all is, right, so I'm living in London and I want to go to see Manchester United, and I might get there, but am I going to get back down again? Or worse still, if I'm not on full charge, I'm going to miss kickoff because I'm going to have to rely on a public charger somewhere. So is that the sort of anxiety? I mean, you were talking about range anxiety there, Ellie. Is that the sort of anxiety people have? I mean, I genuinely have that. Despite what we were hearing there from Fraser.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Snap. Go on. Ladies first.
Oh, goodness me, it is 26 minutes past 12.
Sir Keir Starmer's National Security Advisor has been accused of suppressing an investigation into Chinese spying.
Yes, Jonathan Powell is believed to have removed details from the government's China audit following a trade warning issued by the Treasury.
Well, the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp has accused the Prime Minister of lying, blaming Labour for the collapse of the Chinese spies trial.
Well, it's a bit of a complicated story, but here to break down some of the details for us is our very own political editor, Chris Hope. Chris,
yes,
it looks like the government's being a bit shifty.
Because it seems like the truth is something around trade, but they can't say it. So what happened is, between December 28th, 2021 and February 3rd, 2023, that was the period they're looking at where these two individuals were accused of spying for the Chinese government. They denied it, and the case collapsed. What it all hangs on was, why didn't the government provide evidence of this spying to the CPS? It's from the days Times are saying that there was a dossier prepared about evidence of the issue of China being a threat to the UK on national security, and yet this evidence wasn't provided to the CPS for that period, which meant that the charges fell apart, according to the Times newspaper. There were, of course, evidence of hundreds of cyber attacks, attacks on our critical infrastructure, spying on Hong Kongers here from China. We're going back many years now, we've been describing China as an enemy of the UK. So why couldn't they provide evidence?
I thought an epoch challenge was the slightly fudgy way in which the government described...
Exactly, and we think back to when a Chinese company was removed from our broadband infrastructure at a huge cost to the UK because of concerns about China when the Tories were in power. So it comes down to, why didn't this happen? Now, the government is saying, well, that would relate to a previous administration. But now there's reported that Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, didn't tell officials in September that China would be called an enemy. And yesterday, of course, in this press conference with Sir Keir Starmer, he replied that he can be clear that no ministers were involved in any decisions since his government has been in relation to evidence put before the court. So no ministers, but it's a very, very narrow...
But he was asked about Jonathan Powell, who, of course, isn't a minister. Yes. He's an advisor.
And he's the National Security Advisor.
And someone fresh from giving away the Chagos Islands. I mean, he was the man behind that deal, which a lot of people have alleged was in favour of China.
Because British is quite clear to China.
Right. It raises questions over, do we have an independent policy in this area at all, or are we kowtowing to a communist dictatorship?
It seems like that, but of course the government wouldn't say that. I would point you to an interesting story in The Guardian today to say that Ollie Robbins, the top man in the Foreign Office, is flying to Beijing early next week ahead of a probable visit of, guess who, Sir Keir Starmer to Beijing next year, and that looks like it's a trade story. That is denied by the government. They say this is all prompted by the previous government, and the evidence bundle required was when they're in power, but it feels like it's going towards that.
So when Keir Starmer was asked about it yesterday and why the thing was dropped, he said because China wasn't a threat and you couldn't backdate.
Yes.
But didn't we...
Despite the fact that during all that
knew
period...
already.
Well, during
There's always been a
the
threat.
UK government was saying China was a threat, and there were concerns about this company involved in our broadband infrastructure going back several years, and we know it's been said before, I think, in the previous reviews of security, how concerned the government is about China. So why not?
Very shaky defence, isn't it? Really,
it seems that way, and it seems. I think it seems for many watchers, it looks like it's a trade. Trade is more important than security. But that is denied by the government.
So I suppose this is just yet another example of how our growth being on the floor, of how the economy being in the doldrums, is not just making us poorer, it's actually putting it at risk because the government is so desperate to get any deals with any countries around the world, they're potentially going to put our security second.
I think they already have.
They would deny that, no question. But the concern is going to be now it gives China a free pass to act with impunity about the UK state and secrets and the like if they want to, because we could make these two charges, or at least have the case heard in court. And, of course, the two men who pled not guilty may be found not guilty, of course.
Well, what about the Chinese embassy, then, this super embassy? Because is that still going ahead with all of this?
Well, it's with planning. I think it's going back to Steve Reed, the housing Housing Secretary or the Local Government Secretary. That, of course, is very near to Tower Bridge in central London. There are lots of cables going underground there, which we understand security services are concerned will China try and intercept, listen into what's happening on those cables. That's concerning. So we have this, this is big politics, big global politics stuff here. How do we treat China, this huge growing economy? Is it a friend or foe? And that is not decided yet.
Interesting stuff. Well, Chopper, thanks indeed for that, and pointing out that difference between when the government say ministers.
Yes, exactly.
They're avoiding the idea that an advisor might have changed things. Well, we should say that the Cabinet Office has, and I'm going to read this absolutely straight. The Cabinet Office has insisted that Labour ministers have not been involved in any decisions over the evidence. The government denied that any political pressure was applied to the CPS to drop the case.
All right, well, if you just tuned in, 32 minutes after midday, and it's time for the Great British Giveaway. Here are all the details that you need for your chance to make a motorhome and £30,000 cash, all yours.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up in today's programme. Indeed, we'll be live in Manchester for the boxing legend Ricky Hatton's funeral.
But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Nana, thank you. Very good afternoon. It's just gone 12:30. These are your top stories. Israeli military says that the Gaza ceasefire agreement is now in effect. Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israeli forces will remain in Gaza to pressure Hamas until the group disarms.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 to Maria Corina Machado.
The Venezuelan politician has won this year's award for her work to promote democratic rights. And the Prince of Wales has been moved to tears in a new short film highlighting the devastating impact of suicide. To mark World Mental Health Day, Prince William had an emotional conversation with Rhiannon Mannings, who lost her baby son and her husband within days of each other. French police have used pepper spray to stop migrants from reaching a small boat before it set towards the UK this morning. And thousands of mourners have gathered in Manchester today to celebrate the life of British boxing legend Ricky Hatton. The hearse travelled through the city in a 10-mile procession as the private funeral takes place at Manchester Cathedral this afternoon. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you, Sophia. Coming up, nearly 25,000 pupils forced out of private schools since Labour came to power. New figures raise fresh doubts over the government's VAT raid.
All of that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. High pressure is set to continue, bringing us a mostly cloudy day today, some drizzle in places, but where we see any sunshine, it is going to feel warm. Here's that area of high pressure, at first sitting to the west, slowly pushing its way eastwards towards the course of the weekend. Notice a few more isobars on the chart towards the north, so a little bit breezy at times across Scotland. Well, we'll see the best of the brightness will be towards eastern areas of England. Also, eastern Scotland should see a fair amount of sunshine through the course of the day. There is going to be quite a lot of cloud, particularly across western areas, but by the afternoon we should see some bright, if not sunny spells, and feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius, particularly across the far southeast. Now, through the course of the evening, clear skies are set to continue, but this is where it's going to be turning chilly overnight. A chance of some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas of Scotland. Still plenty of cloud in the west, though, this thick enough to produce some drizzle at times. Similar conditions across Northern Ireland. But elsewhere across England and Wales, we'll at first see a mix of cloud, but more and more clear skies will develop through the course of the evening. So once again, it is going to be turning chilly, particularly as we head our way towards Saturday morning, where we see those prolonged clear skies. That's where we're likely to see some mist and fog develop during the early hours of the morning. Thicker clouds starting to push into western Scotland. Further outbreaks of drizzle moving through here, so it could be quite a damp start as we head our way towards the weekend. Most towns and cities around the mid to high single figures, but in any rural spots, there's a chance we could just dip below freezing. So a chilly start on Saturday. Some cloud will linger through the course of the morning. It'll eventually lift and break, allowing a few more sunny spells to develop. Probably more blue skies around compared to this afternoon. That's away from western Scotland, though. Thicker areas of cloud and some quite persistent spells of drizzle here. Fairly similar temperatures, still feeling warm in the sunshine. Highs reaching 18 degrees Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. A road incident restricts the A87 in both directions between Kyle of Lochalsh and Ardelve. Drivers should approach cautiously and allow extra journey time. The M48 has a 7.5-tonne weight restriction indefinitely for heavy goods vehicles. The A27 eastbound between the A24 south and the junction with the A20025 in West Sussex has all lanes closed due to a collision. Travellers should seek alternative routes. On the trains, cross-country services are disrupted between Leuchars and Dundee and Derby and Nottingham. East Midlands Railway experiences disruptions between Derby and Loughborough. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 38 minutes past midday. Now, to mark World Mental Health Day, the Prince of Wales has spoken about the devastating impact of suicide and the urgent need to support those at risk.
Prince William discussed the issue with campaigner Rhiannon Mannings, highlighting the importance of compassion and early intervention. Now, she's been speaking this morning about meeting the Prince to discuss such a deeply personal and difficult topic. Let's have a listen to that meeting.
When he got emotional, I obviously got emotional, because when you live it every day, you never get hardened to it, but it's part of you and you have to live with it. You have to, otherwise you wouldn't go on. So when you're talking about it...
Apologies, I think that was the wrong clip, but we're joined now by GB News' royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Cameron, so tell us more about this.
Yeah, well, Prince William has launched this new national suicide prevention campaign around the country, £1 million of funding, helping organisations in each country within the United Kingdom. In order to launch it, he spoke to one mother with a very powerful story and actually got the most emotional I've ever seen him. So let's take a look at that clip, if we can.
Just like to sit him down like this and just say, why didn't you come to me? Because he's missed out on just so much joy and we would have been okay. You okay?
I'm sorry, it's
No,
hard to ask you questions that I know.
Hard, and you've experienced loss yourself.
So that lady, Rhiannon, her one-year-old son died of pneumonia. And 5 days later, her husband, the son's father, took his own life. He killed himself. And what Rianne was telling the prince there was why she didn't have any signs. Why didn't you talk to me about this? Why didn't you say that you were struggling? And that's why the prince got so emotional. Of course, he's campaigned a lot for mental health provision and also to break down the stigmas when it comes to male mental health. And of course, with his own personal story of losing his mother so young, I think it just hit William quite hard.
Oh, he's so lovely, isn't he? What a beautiful man.
So often in these conversations, we talk about young people, we talk about schoolgirls' mental health, very, very important, of course. But we aren't seeing an epidemic of suicide there. We're seeing an epidemic of suicide amongst men in their 30s and their 40s.
Yeah.
This is a specifically male issue for people that, aren't super young or super old. This is, I don't want to say you're in your 30s, you're middle-aged, because you're certainly not.
No,
but this is a problem for people.
Yeah.
But this is a specific problem for a specific demographic that doesn't often get spoken about.
Yeah, it's like they think they've got no hope. They also really struggle to talk, I think, that generation. And also, I think you're kind of at that age where you feel like, you've done the education, you've kind of on the career ladder, and that can potentially go one of two ways, couldn't it, in terms of finances and all the rest of it. So William is trying to break down the stigmas by really engaging with and helping charities, specifically helping young men, but also, of course, other people who are struggling too. And Rianne, I think, sums this up brilliantly, because we caught up with her after her chats with William, and this is what she told us.
When he got emotional, I obviously got emotional, because when you live it every day, you never get hardened to it, but it's part of you and you have to live with it. You have to, otherwise you wouldn't go on. So when you're talking about it and seeing emotion coming back at you, you do get reminded that, wow, you have been through quite a lot, which I do forget, because you do have to continue. But I think it just shows that it's okay to have these conversations, and I'm hoping, even if people do get emotional, that today, perhaps seeing this film, they realise that they can talk about it.
It's okay to talk about it, as Prince William says. New campaign, National Suicide Prevention Campaign, 4 nations, lots of charities working together. Full story on our website, gbnews.com.
All right, Cameron Walker, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. And isn't Prince William just phenomenal? A really wonderful man.
Well, we're going to move on quickly now, because almost 25,000 pupils have been forced out of independent schools since Labour came to power, far higher than the government had predicted.
Well, surprise, surprise. A new report suggests that the Prime Minister's plan to charge VAT on school fees is already driving families away, piling pressure onto the state sector.
Well, critics say that the government's education tax is backfiring, costing the public purse more than it actually raises.
Right, well, joining us now is policy analyst at the Taxpayers Alliance, Simeon Lee. Simeon, I think this is totally predictable. They can't control the variable of how many people will leave. Therefore, they don't really know how much they're going to recoup. To me, it was the most nonsense tax ever. But was this expected?
Well, I think you're right that it's common sense that when you tax something, you get less of it. And when parents are facing up to 20%, even more increase in the fees that they have, many of them will have to make the difficult choice to pull their kids out of private school. And I think that one thing that we have to remember here is that this tax actually hits average earners the hardest, because these are people who have been saving, years in some cases in order to afford their child's education. And now this new tax has just totally upended all of this. I think the worst part of this tax is that it's a lose-lose for everyone involved. The parents will not get to send their children to the school that they want. The state sector, in fact, has to absorb all these students coming in from the private sector. And of course, when these students leave the private sector, they won't be paying VAT on their school fees. So I think the government's own estimates, which some people have said are actually a conservative estimate, show that 54,000 students will be leaving the private sector for the state sector. And that's just as I said, some people are saying that that's just an underestimate. That's lost revenue and additional burden for the state sector to cope with.
It seems so extraordinary that this is clearly a sort of class war policy designed to whack the rich. But the rich don't mind. Because it's not the rich that are going to be affected.
No, of course
it's the people who are just about clinging on to their independent school that are going to be affected, that are falling off, and then piling on pressure in the state sector. I wonder, Shimin, does any other European country actually tax education in the way that Britain will now?
Well, I think, in fact, Greece tried a version of this by imposing VAT on private schools back in 2015 during their version of austerity. And of course, that backfired almost immediately. They had to U-turn within a year of that policy coming out. And I think that could very well happen in this country as well, when we finally see the cost that this policy will have on our state school sector. And of course, whether or not the government could have anticipated this, I think, is more down to the ideological hostility, the whole idea of private education and things like private healthcare, which we've already seen calls to extend VAT to private healthcare as well. So I think it's a big issue, and I think the government has to answer for this.
Well, also, they're supposed to raise 1.6 billion, which is a piddly amount, and they also implemented it in January, which meant the parents would then keep their kids in school till the end of the year, because they wanted to maximise revenue. How much will that bite in, this 25,000 now, to the current estimate of how much they'll recoup?
So I think economists have said that if private school numbers fall by about 13%, that will wipe out all the savings from this tax rise. And in places like Scotland, we've actually seen the latest statistics that show it's already about a 10% decrease in private school numbers in Scotland, and that's getting dangerously close to 13%. So I think a lot more parents will be looking at the state sector very soon. And of course, the state sector itself is not in the best shape. You know, there's a lot of issues with it in terms of transparency. Parents don't really know which schools are good schools and which schools are less than good schools. And of course, we at the Taxpayers Alliance recently released a dashboard, a tool that allows parents to take a look at the grades of the schools in their local authority area. We can find that at schoolsdata.uk.
We have to leave it there, but thank you for your thoughts. It's a total mess, as we all anticipated. Thank you.
Well, much more still to come on Good Afternoon Britain. Indeed, we'll have live coverage of the boxing legend Ricky Hatton's funeral taking place live in Manchester today.
But now, if you're in search for some holiday sun, here's the forecast.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Storm Alice continues across eastern areas of Spain, bringing heavy rain and also localised flooding. But elsewhere, it should be a mostly fine and settled picture, particularly across Madeira and Tenerife, most of Portugal and also Spain. But it's across eastern areas where we'll see that storm continuing to bring heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain, strong gusty winds and also large hail. Elsewhere, though, across the Mediterranean, it is mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. That will continue into next week, along with warm temperatures widely in the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up, well, it's just gone 10 to 1.
Now, trail hunting continues to divide public opinion, with a government consultation on a ban due to open shortly.
Well, while the future of trail hunting is at stake, British Hounds Sports Association are hosting events across England today.
Well, joining us now is GB News' national reporter Will Godley to tell us more. Will.
Well, good afternoon, Nana, from a very beautiful Surrey countryside. Not only been beautiful, but busy this morning, full of the local community here, out and about on horseback and with the hounds chasing a scent. Of course, that is what makes trail hunting different to hunting, which has been banned for the last 20 years. Trail hunting involves a scent being laid, and that is what the hounds follow, and that's what's been taking place in the woodland here today and in the fields of this farmland, where hounds and horses have been following the scents here. And it's been a great day for the community, not only from a sporting perspective but also a socialising one as well. You can see behind me people enjoying an afternoon tea, cake, and also catching up on one another as well. And someone who's been in this hunting community, well, he says as long as he can remember, is Warren Marshall. Warren, thanks for joining us on GB News. What does trail hunting and being in this hunting community mean to you?
Well, it's been my life, as you say, for a very long time now. And central to that is the hounds and the horses. That's the most important thing. But also the community that surrounds a hunt and the social functions. It's not just the day's hunting that we're actually out in the field. It's the point-to-points, whist drives and raffles, hunt balls and everything. It's a large community. Charity, raising money for charity. It is an enormous and complex issue, and I feel that any threat to trail hunting, because we thought that trail hunting would make everyone happy. We couldn't see why anyone would be offended by it after the Hunting Act. So for us, it serves the purpose that we're still able to do all those things I've just mentioned. Okay. But it's the hounds and the horses.
Great. Warren, thanks for joining us on GB News. Well, the Prime Minister committed to banning trail hunting under this government, but the community here say it's important to their rural way of life.
Well, Godley, thanks very much indeed. Now, before we get to the weather, we must just say a very, very good luck and warm congratulations to our very own Lewis Mackenzie, who's getting married to his lovely partner, Catherine, today. Well, we wish them so much love, so much happiness.
She's not called Catherine today. Here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there. Good morning. Welcome to our GB News weather update from the Met Office. High pressure is set to continue, bringing us a mostly cloudy day today. Some drizzle in places, but where we see any sunshine, it is going to feel warm. Here's that area of high pressure, first sitting to the west, slowly pushing its way eastwards towards the course of the weekend. Notice a few more isobars on the chart towards the north, so a little bit breezy at times across Scotland. Well, we'll see the best of the brightness will be towards eastern areas of England. Also, eastern Scotland should see a fair amount of sunshine through the course of the day. There is going to be quite a lot of cloud, particularly across western areas, but by the afternoon we should see some bright, if not sunny spells, and feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius, particularly across the far southeast. Now, through the course of the evening, clear skies are set to continue, but this is where it's going to be turning chilly overnight. A chance of some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas of Scotland. Still plenty of cloud in the west, though, this thick enough to produce some drizzle at times. Similar conditions across Northern Ireland. But elsewhere across England and Wales, we'll at first see a mix of cloud, but more and more clear skies will develop through the course of the evening. So once again, it is going to be turning chilly, particularly as we head our way towards Saturday morning, where we see those prolonged clear skies. That's where we're likely to see some mist and fog develop during the early hours of the morning. Thicker clouds starting to push into western Scotland. Further outbreaks of drizzle moving through here, so it could be quite a damp start as we head our way towards the weekend. Most towns and cities around the mid to high single figures, but in any rural spots, there's a chance we could just dip below freezing. So a chilly start on Saturday. Some cloud will linger through the course of the morning. It'll eventually lift and break, allowing a few more sunny spells to develop. Probably more blue skies around compared to this afternoon. That's away from western Scotland, though. Thicker areas of cloud and some quite persistent spells of drizzle here. Fairly similar temperatures, still feeling warm in the sunshine. Highs reaching 18 degrees Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Two guests we're very happy to see all the time, Patrick Christys and Emily Carver, husband and wife, and their new little product, little baby George. Peter Alexander.
Close enough.
Close enough. We won't quibble about the order. Yeah, this is baby George.
Congratulations, the two of you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And what sort of birth was it, Emily?
The traditional way.
Was it easy?
I was induced a little bit early because they were worried that maybe he was measuring a little small, so they wanted to get him out, which did mean that it was very, very painful indeed. But I did finally get an epidural towards the end.
How much did you weigh? Sorry, I was going to say.
6.5 pounds. Yeah, so a little one.
Honestly, I was in awe of Emily. She basically did all of it on 2 paracetamol until right at the end. Yeah. It was incredible.
Yeah, but that wasn't because I wanted to. That's because the epidural took a while to arrive.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, to watch and just to be there, really. I felt very sorry for you, obviously, but, you know, it was...
But the staff were amazing. I had 3 midwives all sort of cheering me on. Push, push, push.
Oh. And you?
And, of course, him.
I was just,
and my mother.
I was supervising.
You were supervising.
I was supervising.
So, how have you two taken to being parents? I mean, there you were leading this life, you know, and then little George comes along. Have you taken to it easily, or have you surprised yourselves, or...?
I think we've been quite natural with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's still...
I mean, as natural as you can be. I mean, not to toot our own horns, but I think it's going pretty well.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Friday, the 10th of October. I'm Nana Akua.
And I'm Tom Harwood. Now, a ceasefire in Gaza is in effect. Israel's military confirms the truce began at midday local time under the US brokered deal with Hamas, with the hostages set to be released in the coming days.
Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Even before that ceasefire took effect, many thousands of Gazans started streaming back towards their homes.
Sir Keir Starmer told to come clean on Chinese influences in Britain after his national security advisor reportedly blocked a major Whitehall report into Beijing's spying.
The row over the spying case continues. Is it about security or really about trade?
And in breaking news just coming into us, Hamid Koskan, who was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence after burning a Quran, has won his appeal at Southern Crown Court against his conviction. We'll bring you all the very latest on that news.
More outrage over plans for digital ID cards. Children as young as 13 could be forced to carry Brit cards under what critics call a sinister expansion of state control.
Elsewhere, a UN expert calls for a global ban on surrogacy, claiming it exploits women and children. But is she right? Should surrogacy really be banned?
And thousands line the streets to say goodbye to boxing legend Ricky Hatton. The Manchester hero who fought his way to global glory is remembered today as a champion who never forgot his roots, and the pride of Hyde makes his final journey home. Right, well, to that breaking news, and Hamid Koskan, who was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence after burning a Quran outside a Turkish consulate in London, has won an appeal at Southwark Crown Court against the conviction.
Well, this was a really interesting and very public incident. Of course, he was burning a Quran. He shouted the words F Islam. He himself, a lifelong atheist who's opposed the Erdogan regime in Turkey, but more on that later in the programme. I'm going to jump to Manchester now, where, of course, it's the funeral of Ricky Hatton. Manchester Cathedral, you can see live pictures here in the heart of Manchester. So many people gathering to say goodbye to one of the city's own famous sons. People like Wayne Rooney, Tyson Fury, so many others gathering.
Really?
And you can hear the crowds there singing, chanting.
And of course, Ricky Hatton was really an incredible phenomenon. So many big celebrities. Frank Budo made some tributes to him. Of course, there was that three-wheel car that they have in Only Fools and Horses. They had a tribute there. And just a really incredible person whose life was taken so young. I mean, he's only 46. And such an incredible personality, but of course he suffered with depression.
But there is just a huge outpouring of grief and support here from the family, from other celebrities, and from the general public as well. There were cheers and chants of "There's only one Ricky Hatton." People were shouting, "Go on, Rick!" I mean, just you can see Liam Gallagher there in the centre. Just so many people attending this memorial service, this funeral, for someone who meant so much to so many.
And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we were talking about Liam Gallagher there, and you know, Ricky's fights often soundtracked by a brass band. Apparently, those in that brass band are here today as well. I wonder if they'll play something or play a tribute at some point. But a very sombre mood at the cathedral. As the guests are patiently leaving.
Well, it was just over an hour ago we saw the, Ricky Hatton's coffin being unloaded from the hearse there outside the cathedral. A sky blue coffin in the colours of Manchester City, the club to which he was a devoted fan, with white flowers placed on top of that coffin being moved in, and of course so many people that weren't inside the cathedral lining the streets in front of the barriers that surround it. So many people just wanting to have one final glimpse, to show their support, to express how much Ricky Hatton really meant to this city, to so many people.
And of course, during the service, Sky Sports boxing commentator was in tears. He gave the eulogy. Lots of people outside There were smiles. He joked about Hatton and said once upon a time not good enough to play for his beloved Man City, before adding that he was an absolutely shocking carpet fisser. He said he was a fantastic fighter and his popularity eclipsed everything. Apparently his voice wavered as he described how Hatton took his losses extremely hard because he felt he would let you all down, which I find heartbreaking. Those are his words. I'll forever love him, his fights, his friendship, his fun, his adoration of life. What a ride it was.
Well, we're just seeing so many people, so many famous faces stepping out there of Manchester Cathedral. The service lasted just over an hour, but my goodness me, what a huge number of enormous stars have turned out to take time out of their day. Wayne Rooney, Colleen Rooney were there. We've seen. Why don't we cross to Jack Carson, who's standing there outside, just as we hear the band start to play. Jack, what more can you tell us?
Yeah, you can probably hear, hopefully you can still hear me, but the band playing, you know, the most famous chant for Ricky Hatton that was sung in arenas around the world when he walked out to the ring, and now sung outside Manchester Cathedral. His coffin now back in his hearse, his family, friends and those who, famous faces who have gathered here to pay their respects to him now leaving this service. In that service we heard a eulogy from his son Campbell, who said that when we were together there was an undeniable bond that we shared and we have memories that will last forever. He said, growing up I looked up to my dad in every aspect of life, saying whether that was boxing or how he carried himself out of the ring, fueled by the love that I had for him. He spoke about how happy as a son he was to spend time whenever him and his dad were together. He talked about the granddad that he was, saying that the time he spent with his grandkids as he got older was probably amongst some of his favourite time that Ricky Hatton had in the later part of his life. He said his son said he couldn't explain how much that he was going to miss his dad, but he said he would try his best to do him proud, and he said he loves him so much. In a eulogy read out by his mum and by his dad, on behalf of his mum and behalf of his dad, they joked around Ricky being born at £10 and how much in the delivery room his dad celebrated that his child was born bigger than the rest. And in words from his mum read out, she said, I felt his first kick and carried himself safely for 9 months. We held his hands until it was too embarrassing for us to do so. But she remembers Ricky Hatton saying to him when she spoke to him about how fast his life had gone when he became a boxing champion, that he'd said to his mum, Mum, if I die tomorrow, I have lived my life already with no regrets. His mum and dad saying in their eulogy that he was our little champ since the day he was born, and they said that hopefully our son has found eternal peace and that would be their last wish. In the tributes given to Ricky Hatton today, they were delivered by a background of music of Live Forever by Oasis, and of course you saw Liam Gallagher, who has been at the service today. In that dedication there was clips of his famous victories, of course one of the most famous victories in boxing history really being against. And there was a quote from an interview that Ricky Hatton had given a few years ago saying that he'd like to think how he'd like to be remembered. He says, I know that I will be remembered as a world champion, but I'd also hope that I was one of them. And of course, he really is the people's champion. That is how so many people have described him to us today. It's how probably every person that's gathered here outside Manchester Cathedral would describe him. They are so proud that one of their own went on to become so successful in British boxing history, and his legacy will not only be those World Championships, as the hearse is almost ready to leave. So I'll just step out of the way here as the hearse comes by us with his coffin, and still roses that people on its way to the Manchester Cathedral threw on the bonnet. But as that hearse drives by, and you can see the coffin there, Richard inscribed into the coffin in Manchester City sky blue. That is where this hearse now heads. And the final part of this procession, which has been some 10 miles long, this hearse now heads to Manchester City, the Etihad Stadium, the home of his beloved football club. As the service ended with If I Can Dream by Elvis, we also heard hymns of Jerusalem and Abide by Me. And as the members of the public who have gathered here today to remember Ricky Hatton clap and clap him off from here, his legacy will not only be that of being a world championship boxer, a world title winning boxer, but also of the legacy he leaves with mental health. His son Campbell has already begun the process of setting up a foundation, a charity, to help those struggling with their mental health, but also around the stigma. In a documentary in 2023, Ricky Hatton spoke so openly about his own suffering, that suffers with depression, about his own problems, how at times he felt like he bottled it up because he didn't want to put those problems on other people. But in the later years of his life, he was so open about that helped other people come forward. Talks of people we've spoken to today about how much Ricky Hatton helped them with their mental health, whether it was simply being someone that they could go and speak to at the boxing gym, whether it was just someone they could go, as one person told us, go and have a drink and go and have a kebab with. He might have been a famous world champion, but he was living in Hyde. He was breathing the Hyde community at the gym that he opened there in 2009, and his legacy here will live on.
Well, Jack Carson, thanks indeed for being there for us. What moving scenes, actually. So many people there turning out.
Thank you so much, Jack. That's Jack Carson. Right, let's get back to the breaking news now. Hamid Koskan, who was found guilty of religiously aggravated public order offences after burning a Quran outside the Turkish consulate in London, has won an appeal at Southwark Crown Court against the conviction.
Really significant news here. Well, let's speak immediately to the Legislative Affairs Director at the Free Speech Union, Sam Armstrong. Sam, a lot of people were shocked, really shocked, to see this guy convicted for exercising speech rights. Now, this was under the Public Order Act. They said it was provocative. And, of course, a man came at him with a large knife, almost machete-like, for him burning his own property. On what grounds has this now been overturned?
Well, I can't do better than the words of the judge himself. Mr. Justice Benathan wrote, "There is no offence of blasphemy in our law. Burning a Quran might be an act that many Muslims find desperately upsetting and offensive. The law, however, is not a mechanism that seeks to avoid people being upset, even grievously upset. The right to freedom of expression, if it is a right worth having, must include the right to express views that offend, shock or disturb." He says that that is a point of law that is well established in England and Wales, and that this prosecution marked a significant departure from it. I guess the real question is, how is it allowed to go on for so long?
Well, I mean, obviously, burning a religious text of any kind, I think, or burning a flag or anything is disrespectful, but that is pretty much it. I mean, it is allowed, even though it's disrespectful. I wouldn't do that only because I have respect for whatever religion, even if I don't agree with the full principles of whichever religion it is. But he didn't do anything illegal. So that begs the question, the person with the knife, I mean, what happened to them?
The individual with the knife, Musa Kadri, who slashed at Mr. Koskan repeatedly while shouting, "I'm going to kill you," and adding some expletives that I won't say here, was spared jail by a judge who convicted him on a guilty plea of the basis of possessing a knife and common assault, the most basic run-of-the-mill assault, the kinds of thing you would get for giving somebody a shove on the street. And one element of all of this that kind of shines through is this question of, is there a degree of two-tier justice going on here? I'll just give you one comparison. Hamid Koskan was prosecuted for burning a Quran. Would the same have been true for others? Well, there was a case back 20 years ago when somebody was not convicted or let off being convicted for burning an American flag. A similarly disruptive, perhaps offensive protest then. Who was their barrister? Well, a young Keir Starmer. And I think that points to the fact that there is a particular kind of justice exercised for one side of the equation and another for other people.
A lot of people will be just really deeply concerned that there isn't clarity here, that there was a conviction, now it's been overturned. At the start of this prosecution, there was a phrase included in the prosecution that was offending the institution of Islam. And that was one of the main sort of initial arguments as to why this should be prosecuted. That was then withdrawn. There has been such ambiguity here, and I wonder if one of the chilling effects on free speech that this whole sordid affair will have is that no one can be confident what they are allowed to say or allowed to do with books that they own. I mean, this is a mess.
Well, the judge struck a really significant rebuke to all of that, and he says that the law is very well established, that these are ancient freedoms that are entitled to everyone in this country and have been for centuries. And it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary that Hamid Koskan was charged with a crime that simply doesn't even exist in law. And it took Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, to go onto Twitter to do his typical social media campaigning, at which point the CPS kind of clocks to the fact that, oh yeah, we haven't even worked out a crime that exists. But still to press ahead to send one of the most senior prosecution barristers in the country, someone who was meant to be prosecuting murder at the Old Bailey, to go down to Westminster Magistrates Court and attempt to make this charge stick against Mr. Koskan, and had some success initially, I think tells you something about how little understanding there is of free speech rights in this country by those in authority, and B, just how determined they are to go after certain people. And then you end up with these bizarre imbalances. We've seen it before, in which people are getting very, very lengthy sentences for certain types of offences, and comparably seem to be getting off very, very lightly for others. And one of the sad side effects of this case is I think it will yet further erode public trust in the way that our justice system is operating. Because anybody, you go on and ask 100 people if they think this should be a criminal offence, the vast overwhelming majority will tell you no. And why is it that time and time again our justice system doesn't seem to be working in the interests of those it's meant to protect?
Although on that one, it would depend who you'd ask and where you ask that question. But I've got to say, thank God for the Free Speech Union, because without organisations like yours, and I wonder what other cases that have gone unseen and unknown, where people have been punished for things that really aren't really offences. I find it shocking. Sam Armstrong, thank you very much. He's the director of the Free Speech Union. Thank you.
Well, breaking news in the last few hours. The Israeli military says a ceasefire is now in effect after the Israeli Defence Force has pulled back from parts of Gaza. It all comes as Donald Trump declared peace in the Middle East after Israel and Hamas signed a deal to end the war.
Well, joining us now is the spokesperson for the Israeli embassy, Alex Gandler. Alex, thank you very much for joining us. Now, this is wonderful news, is it not? And my thoughts are, how solid, how firm is this as this end? Does it feel like the war has actually ended, or is it a moment where?
Shalom and good afternoon. Yes, I think we could be optimistic. I think we can definitely be optimistic on our end, on the Israeli government, and we're very committed to this agreement, to this first phase of the agreement, and it's important to understand this. What we've signed on to, both sides, is the first phase of a larger framework. The first phase will include the return of our hostages, the 48, and a swap with Palestinian terrorists held in Israeli prisons, about 1,700 prisoners from Gaza, together with 250 archi-terrorists that have been lifers in Israeli prisons. So this will be the first phase. The Israeli military has already withdrawn this morning to the yellow line, which is shown on the maps of the plan. and now controls only 50% of Gaza. So yes, we're moving in the right direction. The next 72 hours would be the important ones, where we will have our hostages back and we will transport the terrorists back to Gaza.
OK, well, Alex Gandler, thanks indeed, spokesperson for the Israeli Embassy, for outlining the details there. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Right, well, in response, the Cabinet Office have insisted that Labour ministers are not involved in any decisions over the evidence. We'll do that one afterwards, I think.
Absolutely, lots more still to come. Good afternoon, Britain on GB News, of course, and a UN expert has called for a global ban on surrogacy, claiming it exploits women and children. But does it really? And after the break...
More outrage over the plans for digital ID cards. Children as young as 13 could be forced to carry Brit cards under what critics call a sinister expansion of state control.
All of that and so much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 24 minutes past 1.
Now, the government has announced that children as young as 13 could be given digital ID cards.
Strange, given that there's a huge fuss over 16-year-olds being the ones that should have phones and above. But the former Education Secretary, Sir Gavin Williamson, has labelled the expansion of the scheme to such an early phase as authoritarian.
Well, joining us now is MP and former Education Secretary Sir Gavin Williamson. Gavin, thank you very much for joining us. So, the justification for digital ID cards, is it valid? And also introducing it to 13-year-olds, what is the point of that?
It's an enormous overreach. You know and I know respectable employers already have to check workforces, passports, national insurance numbers, everything there. However, if you have a dodgy employer, they're not going to make these checks, and they're not going to make these checks with digital ID cards. It's going to be a vast amount of money to no effect. And already the scope is expanding. You know, to start off with 16-year-olds, then it's 13-year-olds. Is it going to start at 10? You can see that Whitehall creep, and it's very dangerous.
Now, of course, to have a digital ID card, you have to have one of these, a smartphone. Now, a lot of parents are very, very worried about the pressure for younger and younger children to have a device like this that has unfettered access to the internet, the dangers at that young age of social media. I mean, is this the government, in effect, encouraging children to become glued to their devices, or even more so than they are already?
We already know that children's outcomes are impacted by too much smartphone use, and actually it would be good to have bans in the schools to make sure that they aren't using them all the time. But there's actually an even bigger worry about this. You know, where does this stop? Are you going to have to sort of show your digital ID every time you want to go to the pub for a pint? Are they going to be notching up as to how many beers you drink, or whether you've shown your digital ID for buying a packet of cigarettes? It really does come down to an issue of where is the scope, and the scope, there's no clarity on this. It's just going to creep and creep and creep and encompass all areas of life.
Hang on, so Gavin, you are a member of a party that, when in government, legislated to ban anyone born after the year 2007 from ever buying a packet of cigarettes. Are you now really on the side of the smokers?
Tom, what I am on the side of is people who don't want the state to be monitoring every single movement and shift. And, you know, we could get a long discussion about sort of smoking and everything else like that. But we are in a really dangerous place. You know, it was meant to be 16-year-olds. Now it's 13-year-olds. You know, the requirement for every child to be walking around with a smartphone. And this isn't going to stop the thing that we're concerned about, which is illegal migration and illegal employment, because the bad actors will so easily be able to work around this because they just don't care.
Now, Kevin, I want to ask you about education, because you were a former education secretary. Bridget Phillipson and her VAT raid on private school fees. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's very sad. It seems to be quite a spiteful policy. I know I'm speaking to a lot of parents in my constituency who've had to make the really difficult choice to take their children out of school because they can't just afford that extra 20%. And you're not talking about rich people here. They're people who are making sacrifice to give their kids the very best. And fundamentally, the state has to pick up the bill. I mean, I think it's dodgy economics, and I think it's just quite spiteful.
Do you think that it's going to be potentially U-turned? We were just speaking to someone from the Taxpayers Alliance who was saying that when another European country tried to do this, Greece, they had to U-turn within a year because it ended up costing them more than they thought they'd raise with the tax.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I also think sort of legally it's quite a dubious position that they've sort of taken there. But, you know, at the end of the day, if parents are willing to pay for their children to go to school, so saving the state that money, it means that the state has that money to put into the education of so many others. I can't see how this policy is going to pay. It's not going to get the thousands of extra teachers that Bridget's boasted about. It's one of those policies to announce at party conference, and, you know, it's a wish list of National Education Union, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. And if you were to give a verdict, I might as well ask, seeing as you're on, a verdict of this current government so far, and give them, say, a mark out of 10, what would it be?
Well, you do know I've got to obviously do a sort of a one. I'm probably not really impartial, am I? But I mean, you've got Rachel, who's managed to crash the economy, talk it all down. You've got Keir Starmer, who wants to sort of turn, a sort of Britain into a sort of a mimic of 1930s Central Europe. And, you know, you've got Bridget, who's wanting to squeeze...
Sorry, so Gavin, did you just say Keir Starmer wants to turn Britain into 1930s Central Europe? Is that a reference to 1930s Germany?
Carry on.
Well, what you've got is you've got the surveillance state. You've got a complete overreach on this. You've got wanting to have national ID cards in every aspect of life. life. That's quite simply wrong. It's not what this country is about.
All right, Gavin Williamson, thank you very much, Sir Gavin Williamson, for joining us now. Really good to hear your thoughts.
Hey, that's probably the furthest I've ever heard a Conservative MP.
You should let him finish. Well, you interrupted just...
Well, it was important,
carry on.
important to clarify what he meant by Central Europe in 1930s. That's the Nazi Party. Well, I mean, that is a senior Conservative MP saying that Keir Starmer is behaving like a Nazi. That's the furthest I've ever heard a Conservative MP go on about this.
Europe, that doesn't necessarily mean 1930s Germany, does it? So
Central Europe. Central Europe.
Yeah, but still, he didn't say Germany. He said 1930s Europe.
I think
Europe
it was
is a big place.
Pretty clear what he was saying.
I think he just means that it's just some sort of feels like a totalitarian regime, which is the comparison. It's not that it was Nazi, but a totalitarian.
Well, at the very least, fascist is what he
was.
Yeah. Well, which is a, I think it's a brave thing for a politician to use those sort of comparisons.
Well, I don't know.
David Cameron once got into trouble by doing a German accent when he was talking about ID cards.
No, but he never said Germany. He never said Germany, though, did he? Yeah. Right. It's time for the Great British Giveaway. All the details you need and a chance to win a motorhome and £30,000 in cash. Here they are.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British Giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed.
Yes, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come on today's programme. But shall we get a quick update with your latest news headlines?
Very good afternoon. These are the top stories at 1:30. We start with that breaking news this hour that the man who burnt the Quran has won his appeal. Hamid Kozkan, who was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence, but backed by free speech campaigners, the 51-year-old has successfully appealed against the conviction. Israeli military says that the Gaza ceasefire agreement is now in effect. Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israeli forces will remain in Gaza to pressure Hamas until the group disarms.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 to Maria Corina Machado.
The Venezuelan politician has won this year's award for her work to promote democratic rights. And French police have used pepper spray to stop migrants from reaching a small boat before it set off towards the UK this morning. Thousands of mourners have gathered in Manchester today to celebrate the life of British boxing legend Ricky Hatton. The hearse travelled through the city in a 10-mile procession before the private funeral that's taken place at Manchester Cathedral. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Thank you, Sophia. Lots more coming up on today's show. A UN expert calls for a global ban on surrogacy, claiming it exploits women and children. But is she right? And should surrogacy be banned?
Well, that and much, much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. High pressure is set to continue, bringing us a mostly cloudy day today, some drizzle in places, but where we see any sunshine, it is going to feel warm. Here's that area of high pressure, first sitting to the west, slowly pushing its way eastwards towards the course of the weekend. Notice a few more isobars on the chart towards the north, so a little bit breezy at times across Scotland. Well, we'll see the best of the brightness will be towards eastern areas of England. Also, eastern Scotland should see a fair amount of sunshine through the course of the day. There is going to be quite a lot of cloud, particularly across western areas, but by the afternoon we should see some bright, if not sunny spells, and feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius, particularly across the far southeast. Now, through the course of the evening, clear skies are set to continue, but this is where it's going to be turning chilly overnight. A chance of some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas of Scotland. Still plenty of cloud in the west, though, this thick enough to produce some drizzle at times. Similar conditions across Northern Ireland. But elsewhere across England and Wales, we'll at first see a mix of cloud, but more and more clear skies will develop through the course of the evening. So once again, it is going to be turning chilly, particularly as we head our way towards Saturday morning, where we see those prolonged clear skies. That's where we're likely to see some mist and fog develop during the early hours of the morning. Thicker clouds starting to push into western Scotland. Further outbreaks of drizzle moving through here, so it could be quite a damp start as we head our way towards the weekend. Most towns and cities around the mid to high single figures, but in any rural spots, there's a chance we could just dip below freezing. So a chilly start on Saturday. Some cloud will linger through the course of the morning. It'll eventually lift and break, allowing a few more sunny spells to develop. Probably more blue skies around compared to this afternoon. That's away from western Scotland, though. Thicker areas of cloud and some quite persistent spells of drizzle here. Fairly similar temperatures, still feeling warm in the sunshine. Highs reaching 18 degrees Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the roads, the A90 northbound at Caird Park in Dundee faces restrictions due to a road traffic incident. Drivers should be cautious and expect longer travel times. In Surrey, the A3 northbound between the junctions with the A333 and the A283, Milford has a broken down vehicle closing one lane. And on the trains, there is ongoing disruption with cross-country services between Luchars and Dundee and further disruptions between Derby and Nottingham. Similarly, East Midlands Railway is experiencing issues between Derby, Loughborough and Nottingham. Stay safe on your journeys. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is fast approaching 38 minutes after 1 o'clock.
Now, a United Nations expert has advocated for a global surrogacy ban over concerns that the practice commodifies women and children and inflicts large-scale exploitation.
The report calls for the practice to be prohibited in all forms and surrogacy agencies to be criminalised. We'll give you more on that, but right now, should we go to our breaking news? Hatton's funeral as the coffin has been arriving at the Etihad Stadium in Manchester.
Of course, he was a lifelong Manchester City fan. His coffin in the sky blue colours of Manchester City Football Club. And clearly there, crowds with huge applause. You can see England flags there too. You can see big flags of Manchester City Football Club. Just a hero's welcome for the coffin of Ricky Hatton after his untimely death, after his funeral service at Manchester Cathedral. Now a final sort of pathway there in front of so many people who've turned out to get a glimpse of one of the final journeys of such a hero of Manchester City.
Yeah, very, very sad news indeed. We'll keep following that and bring you all the updates as they happen.
Well, we're going to return to our surrogacy story here because this new report calls for the practice of surrogacy to be criminalised. Let's debate that.
Well, joining us now is the campaigns director at Citizen Go, Caroline Farrow, and the chairperson of Childlessness Overcome through Surrogacy, Kim Cotton. OK, Kim, I'll start with you. How important is it that surrogacy remains something that can be done?
Yes, I mean, over 40 years, it's become such an acceptable practice here, and 98% of surrogacy now is gestational surrogacy. So the surrogate, when she gives birth, is handing the child back to her actually genetic parents, and that's the main surrogacy now. I don't know of one surrogate in the past 30-odd years that has ever regretted her decision.
Yeah, but isn't it in this country?
Sisters, so we share our fertility with someone less fortunate than ourselves. Surrogates get an immense amount of pride from helping someone. It's not always about money. It's not about exploitation. No surrogate is ever forced to be a surrogate. It's something they want to do from the kindness of their heart.
But can't they? I thought they were allowed to keep, just in case, say, you felt after you've given birth, you could actually potentially keep the child, though. Isn't there that risk? There's that little risk that you can keep the child. Is that right? I'm just checking. Am I right, Kim?
Yes, there is a risk, obviously, but a surrogate has never kept a child here for the last 3 decades.
Is that really the case, Kim? That even if it's the genetic, if it's the genetic child of a couple, the surrogate can get. That seems extraordinary.
If you changed your mind, you know, that is a problem. Caroline Farrow, why do you want it to be that surrogacy should be banned or not allowed?
Well, it's interesting to hear Kim talk about kindness, use the words kindness or pride, because the instinct to help others have a family is deeply human. But true kindness never requires erasing yourself or giving up your child. And even if no money changes hands, surrogacy still means turning pregnancy and motherhood into something contractual. So the baby becomes the outcome of an agreement, not a natural relationship. And that's not kindness, that's commodification with good intentions. And you can have the purest motives in the world, but when a woman's body and a baby's life are bound up in this legal transaction, it stops being about generosity and it starts becoming about ownership and transfer. And when we start talking about gestational surrogacy, the whole point of gestational surrogacy is to stop the mother, to stop the woman who's carrying that baby from having absolutely any claim on it. So very often they use a third party's egg, you know, so women who can't conceive for whatever reason, they use someone else's egg and then they fuse it with a sperm and then they put it in a third party's body. And there are all kinds of, every single study and piece of evidence shows how very risky this is for the surrogate. Surrogacy is known to carry so many more risks
Caroline,
for the woman
can I just ask Caroline, very briefly, Caroline, have you got any children? Have you had children, Caroline?
Yes, of course.
Well, and your own, did you carry them yourself?
This is why
did you carry them yourself? Sorry, let me just ask Caroline.
Horses and saying, ban it for other people. She hasn't got a clue. I've worked with surrogacy for 40 years. We've had 1,143 births successfully. Not one surrogate has ever said, this has been the worst mistake of my life. It's the most joyous thing. How can you rob someone of that joy? And surrogacy is not a new concept. It's in the Bible, Genesis chapter 16, 1.4, when Sarah and Abraham couldn't have a child, Sarah used a surrogate. So it's not a new concept. I don't know how you're going back to the dinosaur and the dark ages. We're trying to ban something that is the most beautiful thing to be involved with.
Quite a charge there, Kim. Let's throw it back to Caroline.
This is my passion. Well, it's kind of interesting to hear to hear Kim quote the Bible to quote Genesis and then accuse me of going back to the dinosaur age. I mean, back to this point about, yes, I have my own children, and that's exactly why I believe every child deserves, to come into the world through love and not through a legal arrangement or transaction. And, this isn't about taking a very literal interpretation about the Bible. This is about saying that this is the commoditization of human life. This is, and Kim may not have met anybody, any women who have regretted it, but there are forums and forums of, when you look on these online forums about people considering surrogacy, women know that they will go through a grieving period, that they'll be emotional postpartum. The baby also has an attachment to the woman who has carried her. The baby has,
How do you know that? Sorry, Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I mean, some people might listen to you say it's easy for you to say you've had your own kids. And also, how do you know that the baby definitely has an attachment to the person who's actually carried them rather than the person who actually mothers them? So carrying a child and then being a mother to a child can be two different things.
Well, OK, there are infinite studies demonstrating that when a child is born, the chemical and biological signs that mean that they recognise the woman that has carried them. It's an instinctive and instinctual primal thing. They've been inside that, they've known that woman intimately. They've been inside her body. They've known her heartbeat. They've known the sound of her voice. They've eaten what she's eaten. It's an incredibly intimate relationship. And women are just.
Can I answer that?
Okay, one of you.
Our surrogates are very close to their intending mother. They share the pregnancy. They talk to their child in utero, and there's a bond already. They attend every scan, every antenatal they can. And not only that, they have a relationship after. I'm still in touch with the twins that I had 34 years ago. We have a bond. It is, even though they're not my genetic children, there is a bond, but we maintain that bond. It is the mother that is raising the child 24/7. Anyone can call themselves a mother, but a mother is a mother who's on call 24/7 for 18 years and beyond that. So you just are talking absolute rubbish. And the studies show
Can you give Caroline a chance to respond? Sorry. Kim, give Caroline a chance to respond. Caroline.
It's very easy for Kim to talk about her experience and the experience of the UK. But what the UN is talking about, and actually this is one of the things my organisation has campaigned all over the world on surrogacy, because it exploits women and because it treats babies like products. And we're really proud to be part of the declaration, the Casablanca Declaration, calling for a global ban, like this UN report. And the reason is because not every woman around the world is a comfortable UK middle-class women. You only need to go to America and see these horrible cases of women exploited. There have been cases of children who have been born, with a disability and abandoned. There are so many women.
But listen, I'm afraid. Listen, we've run out of time. But to be fair, there are many children, irrespective of whether they're surrogates or not, that have been born and then abandoned. So I'm not sure whether that's a fair comparison. And also, as I did say earlier, some people might hear what you're saying, Caroline, and think it's all right for you to say that because you're able to have children, and there are many women who can't have children naturally. I think we need to take that into consideration as well. But look, we have run out of time. Caroline Farage and Chairperson of Childlessness, thank you very much. And also Kim Cotton, Childlessness Overcome through Surrogacy. Thank you so much as well.
Oh, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come. Indeed, thousands are lining the streets to say goodbye to the boxing legend Ricky Hatton. We'll have the very latest.
But first, let's get your European weather.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Storm Alice continues across eastern areas of Spain, bringing heavy rain and also localised flooding. But elsewhere, it should be a mostly fine and settled picture, particularly across Madeira and Tenerife, most of Portugal and also Spain. But it's across eastern areas where we'll see that storm continuing to bring heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain, strong gusty winds and also large hail. Elsewhere, though, across the Mediterranean, it is mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. That will continue into next week, along with warm temperatures widely in the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A day for us today, Penny, with losing our friend, Mr. John Stapleton, totally unexpectedly. I mean, of course, we knew he was ill.
Yes,
but
we didn't know he was ill.
We didn't know he was about to die.
Well, no. When he came in, we came in to the studio, and the three of us kind of were reunited.
Just a month ago.
Just a month ago, exactly. And yesterday, the lovely thing was that I had so many texts from people who you'd recognise as well from GMTV days, other people as well. Everybody saying what a gent he was and how kind and, you know, from my point of view, the reason he stayed a friend, you know, obviously, you know, you have these, you call them screen husbands, screen wives, but the reason he stayed a friend was because he was genuinely funny. He made me laugh a lot, all the time. And, in fact, I just recently did a little podcast with him. We were talking about things that he hated and everything, and he was talking about he hated people driving around with cars with their windows open and really loud music.
Yeah.
And he was just going, you know, he said, I just shout at them, can you turn it up a bit? There's somebody in Australia who can't quite hear the words. So you never expect it, you never want it. The people you love, you want to live forever. That's it.
That's very well said, yeah. I obviously was very friendly. He was, when we say a gentleman, he was gentle. He was a gentle soul. And then he became very nasty. It was very difficult to like and get on with. It was just you know, when Manchester United started to decline in terms of superiority, and he became so... He became so arrogant.
No, did he really?
He was unbearable.
He so didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 10 to 2, well, 8 minutes to 2 now, and it's the boxing legend Ricky Hatton's funeral today. Coverage here of him arriving at the Etihad Stadium following a service at Manchester Cathedral.
Now, this morning, fans lined the streets to pay their final respects as the procession made its way through Manchester.
Well, Jack Carson is there for us. Jack.
Yes, well, that near 10-mile procession, you know, thousands of people lining the streets of Manchester, and Hyde, it stopped outside his boxing gym, where, of course, he opened that in 2009, so trying to give something back to the community. And his private funeral service here was attended by hundreds of both the sporting world, entertainment world, people that knew and loved Ricky Hatton. One of those was Tony Bellew. Take a listen to what he said entering the funeral service earlier on.
Just how good of a person he was, for someone who rose to the levels of Ricky Hatton, and to remain just one of the normal people is unbelievable. The best thing memory I have was going to the gym, watching him train for the first time. I was an amateur boxer at the time, just won an ABA title, and I've watched them train, and I've watched thousands of fighters train over the years, hundreds of thousands, and after watching him, it's the only fighter I've ever been thought of, and I've been in awe of him and thought, that's the standard. He's the standard. Everything he does, whether it was strength and conditioning with Kerry Kayes, whether it was body bag with Billy, whether it was jumping a bar, whether it was, he was the standard. And that's the one thing that stands out with the boxing. He worked tremendously hard, and was just one of the best people I've ever got to know and meet.
Loved by Tony Bellew, loved by thousands, millions, all not only in the UK but across the world as well. Chants of one Ricky Hatton as his coffin was placed back in the hearse as it made then its way to the Etihad Stadium. In the eulogy from his son Campbell read out today, he said he can't explain how much he's going to miss his dad, but he'll try to make him proud.
All right, Jack Carlson, thank you very much. This is Good Afternoon Britain. Stay tuned. Lots more coming up after the break.
Absolutely. So let's get a quick check-up on that weather forecast, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to our GB News weather update from the Met Office. High pressure is set to continue, bringing us a mostly cloudy day today, some drizzle in places, but where we see any sunshine, it is going to feel warm. Here's that area of high pressure, first sitting to the west, slowly pushing its way eastwards towards the course of the weekend. Notice a few more isobars on the chart towards the north, so a little bit breezy at times across Scotland. Well, we'll see the best of the brightness will be towards eastern areas of England. Also, eastern Scotland should see a fair amount of sunshine through the course of the day. There is going to be quite a lot of cloud, particularly across western areas, but by the afternoon we should see some bright, if not sunny spells, and feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius, particularly across the far southeast. Now, through the course of the evening, clear skies are set to continue, but this is where it's going to be turning chilly overnight. A chance of some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas of Scotland. Still plenty of cloud in the west, though, this thick enough to produce some drizzle at times. Similar conditions across Northern Ireland. But elsewhere across England and Wales, we'll at first see a mix of cloud, but more and more clear skies will develop through the course of the evening. So once again, it is going to be turning chilly, particularly as we head our way towards Saturday morning, where we see those prolonged clear skies. That's where we're likely to see some mist and fog develop during the early hours of the morning. Thicker clouds starting to push into western Scotland. Further outbreaks of drizzle moving through here, so it could be quite a damp start as we head our way towards the weekend. Most towns and cities around the mid to high single figures, but in any rural spots, there's a chance we could just dip below freezing. So a chilly start on Saturday. Some cloud will linger through the course of the morning. It'll eventually lift and break, allowing a few more sunny spells to develop. Probably more blue skies around compared to this afternoon. That's away from western Scotland, though. Thicker areas of cloud and some quite persistent spells of drizzle here. Fairly similar temperatures, still feeling warm in the sunshine. Highs reaching 18 degrees Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Britain's Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Friday, the 10th of October. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Akua. Now, a ceasefire in Gaza is now in effect. Israel's military confirms the truce began at midday, local time, under the US brokered deal with Hamas, with hostages set to be released in the coming days.
Just extraordinary scenes there. Elsewhere in this country, Hamit Koskan, who was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence after burning a Quran, has won his appeal against that conviction. More on that later.
Sir Keir Starmer told to come clean on Chinese influence in Britain as his national security advisor reportedly blocked a major Whitehall report into Beijing's spying.
We'd just like to sit him down like this and just say, why didn't you come to me? Because he's missed out on just so much joy and we would have been okay.
In an emotional video, the Prince of Wales has spoken about the devastating impact of suicide and the need to support those at risk.
Well, it's National Trail Hunting Day and the sport continues to divide the nation. With the government consultation looming, rural communities say their way of life is under threat.
Well, after a busy morning trail hunting here, the hounds are back in their kennels. The locals here hope not for the last time, as they want the Prime Minister to protect the sport they love rather than ban it.
Well, I think there's a big victory today for free speech. I don't think I would want to live in a country where you are not allowed to criticise a religion, whatever religion that happens to be. I don't think I'd want to live in a country where someone would be found guilty in a court of law for disrespecting a book that they happen to own. A book?
Well, you know, all I think of that is I don't think you should be arrested for it, but it's very disrespectful. So burning a flag, burning a Quran, burning a Bible, burning any religious text or something that has some sort of emotional kind of connection with a group of people in a way, so like a sector of people, it's unwise. So I'm not, it's aggravating, but should it be illegal? No. But I think, you know, we need to start being more respectful of each other. I think there has to be... I'd almost want to give that person a course in community cohesion or something. Do you know what I mean?
But no,
do you know what I mean? I'd like to give them a...
protesting the Islamisation of his home country, Turkey.
No, that's true.
The policies of the Erdogan regime, and he's a lifelong committed atheist, and he believes that country is slipping away from secular democracy and towards a form of Islamist control.
He's right, but I don't know whether burning something is the right way to do it. If I was saying I'd try and do it with speech and try and have some sort of conversation about it. I mean, you know,
if that conversation about it became illegal, I'd be very concerned. But I don't like the fact that he burnt something that has, you know, religious symbolism to a group, even if I don't necessarily agree or, you know, adhere to the terms of that religion. I just think it's aggravating, and it'll probably cause upset and insult to people, which is unnecessary because we're also a polite country, aren't we?
It is good to be polite. It is good to be tolerant, but surely the tolerance must run both ways. Deeply religious people should be tolerant of people who do not believe in their religions.
Absolutely. Well, that's, again, very true, and I accept that too. But I still wouldn't burn another religion's flag or burn another religion's book, only because I'm tolerant and respectful, but I'm not... I might not want to be part of that religion. So, what about burning flags?
I think you should be allowed to burn flags, but it should be frowned upon.
OK, there you go. That's what I'm saying. Right. Well, send us your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Nana, thank you. It's 2:04. These are your top stories. And we start with that breaking news that the man who burnt the Quran has won his appeal. Hamit Koskan, who was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence after burning a Quran outside the Turkish consulate in London. But, backed by free speech campaigners, the 51-year-old successfully appealed against the conviction, with a judge finding in his favour at the Southwark Crown Court today. His appeal case was also attended this week by Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick, who said that while he did not agree with what Mr Koskan had done, he said, quote, "I don't believe it's a crime." Elsewhere, Israeli military says that the Gaza ceasefire agreement is now in effect. The 72-hour period has begun to exchange the hostages, which Israel has said will include 11 Hamas prisoners. Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israeli forces will remain in Gaza to pressure Hamas until the group disarms. That's after US President Donald Trump declared peace in the Middle East, as Israel and Hamas are set to sign that deal to end the war in Gaza. Now, back in the UK, the Foreign Secretary has said that there will be no British troops on the ground in Gaza to help police this ceasefire. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has praised President Trump's efforts.
It's an heroic effort by the American administration. Absolutely heroic effort. Whoever thought we'd see simultaneously people in Israel and in Gaza both on the street celebrating. This is, I mean, look, we never know what the future holds, but right now there is something very big to celebrate.
A Venezuelan politician has won this year's Nobel Peace Prize award for her work to promote democratic rights.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 to Maria Corina Machado.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee praised her and her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy in Venezuela. It comes as the lead-up to this year's award has been dominated by US President Donald Trump's repeated public statements that he was the one that deserved to win the prize. French police have used pepper spray to stop migrants from reaching a small boat before it set off towards the UK this morning. Around 100 men and women gathered on a beach in northern France, hoping to cross the English Channel. As they began to head for a dinghy in the water, some collided with French police who used a spray to try and stop them. At least 70 people made it to the boat and were pictured taking off towards Dover. The Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philps, says that Sir Keir Starmer's team had access to multiple documents proving that China was a national security threat before the major spying case collapsed. Writing in The Times, Chris Philps claims that the government, quote, destroyed the prosecution by refusing to share key evidence with prosecutors. Sir Keir Starmer insists that ministers played no role and says that the law only allows charges based on the situation at the time. Former National Security Advisor Lord Sedwell says that he's puzzled by the decision and an independent review is now underway. Now, the Prince of Wales has been moved to tears in a new short film highlighting the devastating impact of suicide. In the emotional conversation, Prince William spoke with Rianne Mannings, who lost her baby son and husband within days of each other. The film marks World Mental Health Day and launches the Royal Foundation's National Suicide Prevention Network, a UK-wide initiative backed by over £1 million in funding. Rianne Mannings said that it was surreal to have the Prince in her home.
So having him come into the home is special, isn't it? Because it's your space and it's where I lost the boys, and for him to come in, it was almost like an acknowledgement to that. And then to make cups of tea and have my mum's Welsh cakes on the side, and he helped put them on a plate, and then we sat down to my kitchen table to chat. Yeah, that doesn't happen every day, does it? And you want him to feel relaxed, because you know, he's human at the end of the day, coming into somebody else's home. So it was pretty relaxed, and the conversation I felt was quite natural.
Now, businesses and shoppers alike are tightening their belts as fears grow ahead of next month's budget. The British Chambers of Commerce says that firms remain bruised, with confidence and investment still stuck at 2022 levels. Meanwhile, low consumer confidence and poorer wealth are keeping people off the high street, with September footfall falling sharply. Economists warn that the figures pile on more pressure to the Chancellor as she prepares for what could be a tax-rising budget. And a service has taken place at Manchester Cathedral for British boxing legend Ricky Hatton. The hearse travelled through the city in a 10-mile procession before the private funeral took place this afternoon. The popular, larger-than-life character who unified the light welterweight division and also won a world welterweight title was found dead, aged 46, at his home on the 14th of September. Liam Gallagher, Chris Kamara, Tyson Fury and Amir Khan were all in attendance to pay their respects. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour, but first let's quickly check in on the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of the markets this afternoon. The pound will buy you $1.326 and 1.146 euros. The price of gold is £3,002 and 43 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,511 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's fast approaching 10 minutes after 2 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua, and of course this is Tom Harwood. Let's get back to the breaking news. Hamit Koskan, who was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence after burning a Quran outside the Turkish consulate in London, has won an appeal at Southwark Crown Court against the conviction.
Well, joining us now is a man who was at that appeal at Southwark Crown Court, the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick. Robert, it's quite unusual for a Shadow Justice Secretary to turn up at a trial, at an appeal. Why did you decide to go?
Well, I thought this was a very important and potentially landmark case. It's a victory for freedom of speech that Hamit Koskan has been cleared today. Look, you might find it unpleasant. You might even find it downright nasty to burn a religious text in a public place, and it's not something that I would condone. But in most instances, it is not a criminal offence. Parliament voted almost 20 years ago now to abolish our blasphemy laws. And the authorities, by pursuing this case in the way that they did, were trying to recreate a blasphemy law by the back door. So it was very important to fight this every step of the way. And the fact that the court today has cleared Mr. Koskan, I think, is a very significant signal. This country does not have a blasphemy law, and it never should do.
Now, is there a problem? So, for example, there was sort of talk of a definition of Islamophobia, which would then make what he did potentially Islamophobic. Would that be, are they kind of trying to sneak in a way of making Islam kind of something that if you do something against, which ultimately would be a blasphemy law, is that kind of like a backdoor way of doing that?
Well, that's the worry that many of us have, that creating this government-approved definition of Islamophobia, certainly if it were ever to be placed into law, would create a blasphemy law by the back door. In fact, not even by the back door at all. It would be a blasphemy law, and it would be a blasphemy law that was primarily about one religion. And we mustn't have that situation. But there would be instances where I think all of us in society would agree that you shouldn't be burning a religious text if it was being done, for example, outside a mosque or a synagogue or a church or a religious school, specifically, clearly, to intimidate or to incite hatred of those people who are inside or passing around. But that wasn't what was happening in this instance. This was a man on a street burning it as part of a personal, political protest. He wasn't expecting to offend anybody who was walking past. In fact, there was a Deliveroo driver who passed him, and then somebody came rushing out of the building, slashing him with a knife, saying that they were offended by it. The bar has to be set very, very high.
You wouldn't know what was in his mind if you were just seeing him do that. Do you know what I mean? He had to explain why he was doing it.
Exactly.
There's some passerby who thought they'd
Exactly.
attacking with a knife.
And I think the other thing about this incident that became so egregious was the very real sense of two-tier justice, where here was a man who was making a protest and yet was dragged before the courts and found guilty. And then you had a man who literally ran out of a building with a knife, an Islamist, trying to attack him, potentially even trying to kill him. And yet that man, although he was found guilty, was given a suspended sentence, never went to prison.
Unbelievable.
I thought that was an appalling miscarriage of justice.
This is such a confusing case in so many ways that perhaps, yes, this judgment is good for the protester at the end of the day, but the number of different twists and turns that this case has taken, you initially pointed out one of the grounds on which this trial was being brought in the first place. Not a sort of incitement, not a public order offence as such, but instead offending the institution of Islam. Those are the words to the effect of the initial prosecution.
That's right. Look, I'm going to be writing to the Attorney General later today, demanding a full inquiry from the Crown Prosecution Service as to the way in which they have handled this case. Because initially, they created this imaginary charge of incitement against the religious institution of Islam. No such offence exists. We saw that. We took action against them and shamed them, frankly, into dropping that charge. They then brought forward another lesser charge under the Public Order Act. He was found guilty of that in the first instance, and then today a High Court judge sitting at Southwark Crown Court has cleared him of that offence as well. So there are very serious questions now to answer by the CPS as to how they've conducted this case. They've dragged a man, ultimately found innocent, through the courts for months, wasted presumably hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money, and created these trumped-up charges which have been found to be bogus.
Now, just to play devil's advocate for a moment, the initial prosecution of this guy said that he knew well what would happen if he burned a Quran outside the Turkish consulate, that he had already posted a video on social media of him burning a Quran on his own property and received death threats, that he was trying to provoke people coming at him, perhaps even coming at him with weapons, that's what he wanted to incite. That's what the first judge found. And wouldn't that be, under the terms of the Public Order Act, not legal? I mean, that was the argument that the first judge made.
Well, look, I don't condone the burning of a religious text. It's not something I would ever do. It's offensive to many people, probably most people in our society. But it's not criminal to do that. Or at least the bar for criminality should be set extremely high. And I don't think that was the case.
Why wasn't it inciting?
Because he didn't intend, as far as I'm aware, to incite people. He was doing it on a street. Yes, he might record it might be seen by people, but he didn't expect passers-by to take offence. How could he have predicted that a man on a delivery bike who was passing by would be so offended that he would stop and kick and spit on him? And why should that be a criminal offence in any event? Well, in fact, it was disgraceful that that individual behaved in that way and seems to have got away with it because he cycled off down a street in London.
But to be fair, you would know that if you do something like that, you'll spark some level of outrage, despite what's in your mind as to your reasoning. The people on the outside don't know that, so they'll just do whatever it is that they do.
But I don't think you can argue that he brought it on himself, that someone 100%. Charges out of a building with a knife and slashes him.
But a knife,
I mean, that was on the bloke who did that.
It's not acceptable. So what is the outcome then after all this? Because if they're able to kind of interpret the law like that, and it's just lucky that the Free Speech Union, people like you, were able to speak up, but there'll be other incidences that might end up going under the radar. So how do we make sure that the government stick with what is actually law rather than this sort of overreach?
Well, that's why cases like this are so important and why it matters that those of us who are in Parliament and organisations like the Free Speech Union stand up and fight to ensure that the law as set by Parliament is properly applied by the Crown Prosecution Service and ultimately by the courts. And it may sometimes be uncomfortable because it may mean taking the side of someone who's done something that you find eccentric or even downright unpleasant. But if it isn't criminal, then it has to be defended. And here we felt it was very clear that Parliament had said no more blasphemy laws 20 years ago. We shouldn't allow the courts, the authorities, to bring one back by the back door.
All right. Well, listen, I just want to sneak one in on the ID cards. What are your thoughts, ID cards?
I'm very strongly against ID cards, always have been. I don't want to live in that kind of country. And I think it's a totally fake argument. If anyone believes this is going to stop illegal migration, they're in cloud cuckoo land. If you go to your local, Albanian car wash, the bloke who's running it knows full well that the people there are illegal workers. He's already under a legal obligation to check whether they've got the right to work in the UK. The fact that on your smartphone you might have a digital version of the documents you should already be showing won't make a blind bit of difference.
OK, and I suppose there's going to be a lot of people looking at the Conservative Party at this period in time. The Conservative Party, of course, had its conference conclude on Wednesday. Some big announcements, some sort of putting the party, putting a new line in the sand, perhaps. I wanted to ask you whether you think that the Conservative Party is going to do well in May. What would be your benchmark for a successful set of elections in Scotland, in Wales, in many local authorities? Is it second place, third place, fourth place?
Well, look, we're only just over a year after suffering our worst ever election defeat. So I've always been clear that we have a mountain to climb to regain the public's trust and confidence. But I want the Conservative Party to be back in business, to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves down. And so, of course, we've got to use May to be winning seats, to be getting into a much stronger position. We can't keep
gaining ground in May is your benchmark.
Well, we've got to be gaining ground on where we were last year. Otherwise we're not making any progress at all.
OK, Robert Jenrick, thanks indeed for being with us here on Good Afternoon Britain.
Lovely. Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. But,
yes, Prince William has spoken about the devastating impact of suicide. We'll speak to someone who met him last month over the issue. But we've got much more still to come on the programme.
Some breaking news, though. Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, joins us. Mark White.
Yeah, just news from Southwark Crown Court on Fayez Khan, otherwise known as Mada Pasa. You remember he is the migrant on the other side of the channel who threatened Nigel Farage over the social media. He has now been found guilty of that threat to kill Nigel Farage after a couple of days of deliberation by the jury. Actually, we got to the stage yesterday where the judge issued a majority ruling for the jury there, but they have now come back finding this Afghan national, 26-year-old, guilty of making those threats on social media. You remember, of course, this was at a time when Nigel Farage had taken one of his videos because he had been documenting his travel from Sweden to the northern coast of France with a view to getting over on a small boat. He'd been living in Sweden since 2019. And Nigel Farage used one of his videos because, I mean, he looked pretty menacing in his videos. He was posting videos posing with firearms. He had this, as people will probably remember, this tattoo of an AK-47 on his face as well. When Nigel Farage posted that, though, he then posted a video threatening Nigel Farage. That was a key plank of the evidence used at Southwark Crown Court. Let's just have a look at what that video contained.
Englishman, Nigel Pasa, don't talk about me. You not know me. I come to England because I want marriage with your sister. Don't talk about me more. Delete a video. This is not good, my friend. You not know me. I gonna come to England. I gonna mother Pasa, man. You know, this is mother Pasa. Every country know me, Vamaya, mother Pasa. I'm TikToker. I'm not gang. I'm not mafia. I'm mafia's papa, Pasa, man. Rais Montana. Hela wagon to London. Pasa, man. all my video, my live, there's content. You know, Madapasa. First, you must see Vamaya Madapasa.
So Fayez Khan, a.k.a. Madapasa, on that video, now found guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage on social media. We'll have more on this a little later in the show.
Just an extraordinary video there, the kind of people who are coming across by small boat with a gun tattooed on his cheek and threats of pop, 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 those imitation sounds of firearms that he wanted to make against Nigel Farage. Much more on that still to come. Do stay with us here on Good Afternoon Britain. We're going to take a short break now, but there will be much more for you after this.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Senior doctors have warned that the NHS is in a state of emergency, despite £25 billion being injected from the Chancellor Rachel Reeves.
So if £25 billion extra pounds doesn't fix it, what will? Well, despite the pledge to make fixing the broken NHS a top priority, waiting lists have indeed continued to grow, with the latest NHS data showing a third consecutive monthly increase. Oh dear, along with a rise in 12-hour A&E waits.
Well, joining us now to discuss this is GP and former chair of the BMA GP Youth Committee, Dr. Lawrence Buckman. Lawrence, this is a little bit concerning, although I did the maths, and £25 billion gives you just over 5.5 weeks' worth of funding for the NHS, which actually costs about £619 million a day to run. So what is going wrong with it? It's got loads of money, but somehow the money doesn't seem to be working.
Now, the money
is always welcome, but will not make any real difference to clearing the backlog. And that's because there are not enough people, doctors, nurses and therapists and all the other people working in the health service. There are just not enough of them, and you can't replace them simply with money. You obviously can buy a few more people like that, but we don't actually generate enough doctors, nurses and others to do the work that's required. There aren't enough people, and to some extent, lesser extent, there aren't enough buildings. And you can't just do these things quickly, which is a shame. Money is relevant, but not the most relevant thing. The most relevant thing is increasing the workforce and putting them in a position where they can do the work, and then steadfastly editing the workload downwards. And that
Dr.
requires...
Lawrence, but what if that's the case? We've got junior doctors about to strike because they've not got enough work. So it seems a bit of a... On one case, you're saying that there's not enough people, but then somehow we're not allowing the people who are available to work. So I don't really understand why.
Right, that's because the resource given to the individual trusts that employ the doctors is not enough to employ the number of doctors that they need. And this money will help to fix some of that, but not all of it. We knew this was coming 20, 30 years ago. We could see it coming, that there would be more doctors generated from medical schools that the NHS couldn't afford to allow to work. And we now have this ridiculous situation where there are doctors who want to work and there are patients who clearly need them to, yet the health service hasn't been funded chronically at a level. You've just made the point. This amount of money is a few weeks' worth of money. It's nowhere near the kind of money to employ the workforce. You've also got to have somewhere to put them. If you keep losing facilities because they're wearing out and breaking down and you don't replace them, then you can't just build a hospital in 5 minutes. Well, we did during COVID times, but you can't realistically do that normally. You can't get rid of the waiting list that there are.
But there is something the government is doing, which is that obviously in the UK, our entire healthcare structure is very hospital-centric. If you want to have a diagnostics, you're probably going to have to go to a hospital. If you want surgery, you're probably going to have to go to a hospital. A&E, again, you're going to have to go to a hospital. I mean, everything goes to the hospitals. And what actually the last government started to do, and this government is continuing, is to create more non-hospital options, to free up room in hospitals, so perhaps you can get diagnosed in a small clinic. Maybe doctors can come and visit you at your home for the lesser diseases and illnesses. I mean, this could be something that really moves the goalposts.
Of course, it would make an enormous difference. What you're talking about is primary care. That's what GPs do, and lots of other people who work in the community. The primary care doesn't absorb very much of the NHS's budget. And part of the problem in primary care is that we have the same nonsense we have in hospital in primary care, which is there's plenty of people who'd like to be GPs, but the GPs don't have the resources. I'm not talking about their pay now. They don't have the resource to employ more doctors in the community. So you get GP waiting lists, which is an utter nonsense, and it shouldn't be there. And you'd have to change the way the health service is funded in order to make that happen. But you're quite right. Diagnostics could nearly all be community-centric. Certainly an awful lot more healthcare could be done in the community, but you've got to have the people there first. Money is always very welcome, but realistically, it doesn't make a huge difference. And as you pointed out, this amount of money, which sounds colossal, actually doesn't go very far in the context of the NHS.
All right. Dr. Lawrence Buckman, thank you very much. He's the former chair of the BMA's GP committee. I don't understand it. You go to somewhere like Spain, you can get antibiotics and things like that. Yeah. I think the GPs are almost like gatekeepers. It's like a funnel. If they just took away that funnel and allowed people, and they should just stop doing that. Why do you have to?
So right there.
Why do you have to go to? You could just go to the chemist, buy antibiotics, antivirals, and yet, why do you have to go to the doctor?
Because Rishi Sunak's parents were pharmacists. His mum ran a pharmacy in Southampton. When he was Prime Minister, he said that pharmacy first was the policy, where for more things you can go to the pharmacy and get them prescribed. But the GPs and the BMA protested against that, saying, oh, these pharmacists, they're not qualified, they can't do the jobs of GPs.
Even to use private medical cover, some of them you have to go to the GP. It's like, take away that funnel and let people do what they want. And if people are irresponsible with antibiotics and antivirals, you know, for goodness sake, people can be trusted to take medication.
Especially pharmacists giving more prescriptions. That would be a very good thing and free up space. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and lots more still to come. But let's get an update with your news headlines next.
Very good afternoon. Top stories at 2:30. Breaking in the last few minutes, small boat migrant Farage Khan, aged 26, has been found guilty at Southwark Crown Court of making a threat to kill Reform UK leader Nigel Farage in a TikTok post last year. Also breaking this afternoon, a man who burnt the Quran has won his appeal. Hamid Koshkan was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence, but, backed by free speech campaigners, the 51-year-old successfully appealed against the conviction. Elsewhere, Israeli military says that the Gaza Ceasefire agreement is now in effect. Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israeli forces will remain in Gaza to pressure Hamas until the group disarms. Now, French police have used pepper spray to stop migrants from reaching a small boat before it set off towards the UK this morning. And thousands of mourners have gathered in Manchester today to celebrate the life of British boxing legend Ricky Hatton. The hearse travelled through the city in a 10-mile procession before the private funeral took place at Manchester Cathedral. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Thank you, Sophia. Coming up, Prince William has spoken about the devastating impact of suicide. We'll speak to someone who met him last month over the issue.
All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. High pressure is set to continue, bringing us a mostly cloudy day today, some drizzle in places, but where we see any sunshine, it is going to feel warm. Here's that area of high pressure, first sitting to the west, slowly pushing its way eastwards towards the course of the weekend. Notice a few more isobars on the chart towards the north, so a little bit breezy at times across Scotland. Well, we'll see the best of the brightness will be towards eastern areas of England. Also, eastern Scotland should see a fair amount of sunshine through the course of the day. There is going to be quite a lot of cloud, particularly across western areas, but by the afternoon we should see some bright, if not sunny spells, and feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius, particularly across the far southeast. Now, through the course of the evening, clear skies are set to continue, but this is where it's going to be turning chilly overnight. A chance of some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas of Scotland. Still plenty of cloud in the west, though, this thick enough to produce some drizzle at times. Similar conditions across Northern Ireland. But elsewhere across England and Wales, we'll at first see a mix of cloud, but more and more clear skies will develop through the course of the evening. So once again, it is going to be turning chilly, particularly as we head our way towards Saturday morning, where we see those prolonged clear skies. That's where we're likely to see some mist and fog develop during the early hours of the morning. Thicker clouds starting to push into western Scotland. Further outbreaks of drizzle moving through here, so it could be quite a damp start as we head our way towards the weekend. Most towns and cities around the mid to high single figures, but in any rural spots, there's a chance we could just dip below freezing. So a chilly start on Saturday. Some cloud will linger through the course of the morning. It'll eventually lift and break, allowing a few more sunny spells to develop. Probably more blue skies around compared to this afternoon. That's away from western Scotland, though. Thicker areas of cloud and some quite persistent spells of drizzle here. Fairly similar temperatures, still feeling warm in the sunshine. Highs reaching 18 degrees Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M8 eastbound at Junction 18 is restricted due to a broken down vehicle. Motorists should exercise caution. On the M4 eastbound, drivers face congestion between Junction 27 High Cross and Junction 24 Coldra. In Gateshead, the A1 southbound entry slip from the A167 is closed due to a broken down vehicle. In Salford, the M60 anti-clockwise at junction 14 has one lane closed. Additionally, a lane is closed on the M5 southbound exit slip at junction 20 in North Somerset. And on the trains, cross-country is experiencing disruptions between Derby and Nottingham and through Plymouth. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. Britain is just gone 37 minutes after 2 o'clock. Now, to mark World Mental Health Day, the Prince of Wales has spoken about the devastating impact of suicide and the urgent need to support those at risk.
Yes, Prince William discussed the issue with campaigner Rhian Mannings, highlighting the importance of compassion and early intervention. She's been speaking this morning about meeting the Prince to discuss such a deeply personal and difficult topic. Let's have a listen.
Just like to sit him down like this and just say, why didn't you come to me? Because he's missed out on just so much joy and we would have been okay. You okay?
I'm sorry, it's hard to ask you questions that I know.
Hard, and you've experienced loss yourself.
Well, we're joined now by the CEO of the Jack Lewis Foundation, Liz Thomas-Evans, who met with Prince William last month to discuss suicide prevention. Liz, lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for being on air here on GB News. So tell us a bit more about your meeting with Prince William.
So the meeting with Prince William last month was to launch our mental health hub, which we've now set up with the support of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales in the Principality Rugby Stadium in Cardiff, in association as well with the Welsh Rugby Union. So really reducing that stigma really of males coming through for support.
Now, it's such a different side to the royal family that we're seeing with Prince William. I mean, hugely different from his grandmother, or indeed his great-great-great-grandmother and her famous stiff upper lip. We're seeing an emotional side to the royal family that traditionally they shied away from.
Yeah, so I think with Prince William, you know, what we see is very empathic and warm. He really cares and he really wants to help and make a difference across the UK with regards to suicide prevention. And I think, you know, today the launch of the National Suicide Prevention Network shows his dedication to that.
And of course, it's quite a poignant moment as well, because we hear of Ricky Hatton, who sadly lost his life through suicide, and he was also being laid to rest today. What do you think is really causing so many men who are young, 30s, 40s, of taking their lives in this way?
Suicide is, you know, it's very complex. There's so many different reasons. We provide the national service in Wales for those people that have been affected by suicide. So we hear stories every single day, and there's not one size fits all approach really to it. And I think that's the really wonderful thing now about Prince William and Princess Catherine supporting in this National Suicide Prevention Network, because we can learn from each other, and make sure that we have services at the right time in the right place with the right support for people when they need it across the UK.
Now, one of the really sad things about hearing some of these stories is that so often the people that were even very, very close to the people who end up taking their lives just don't know that things are wrong, just don't know that things are going wrong in the lives. So many people shut themselves off and don't reach out that hand to talk. What can people do? What can people say to their friends, the people that they know, just to check in?
I mean, are there any signs in particular, Liz?
It's very difficult again. I think, everybody's individual, and for some people there will be signs and for others maybe not. I think the most important part is what Prince William has talked about today, which is about talking about suicide, about checking in with people, making sure, that we do ask the questions and that we do, support each other, and know of services as well that are out there that can help and support. I think for us today, really sort of getting out there as well, the Hub of Hope, which people can access their website, and on there there's over 1,500 different organisations across the UK that can offer that support.
All right. Well, Liz, thank you very much for talking to us and wish you all the best with your organisation. That's Liz Thomas-Evans. She met with Prince William and she's the CEO of the Jack Lewis Foundation. Thank you, Liz.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come on the programme.
Well, it's National Trail Hunting Day and the sport continues to divide the nation with a government consultation looming. Rural communities say that their way of life is under threat.
But before we get to the hunts here at home, let's check the weather abroad.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Storm Alice continues across eastern areas of Spain, bringing heavy rain and also localised flooding. But elsewhere, it should be a mostly fine and settled picture, particularly across Madeira and Tenerife, most of Portugal and also Spain. But it's across eastern areas where we'll see that storm continuing to bring heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain, strong gusty winds and also large hail. Elsewhere, though, across the Mediterranean, it is mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. That will continue into next week, along with warm temperatures widely in the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Now, trail hunting continues to divide public opinion with a government consultation on a ban due to open shortly.
Yes, while the future of trail hunting is at stake, the British Hound Sports Association are hosting events right across England today.
Well, joining us now is GB News' national reporter Will Godley to tell us more. Will?
Yeah, good afternoon, Nana. From the kennels where the hounds now are settling down after a busy morning trail hunting traditionally, and as has been seen across Britain today, those trail hunts start at 11 a.m. sharp, and the one happening here earlier on today lasted for about an hour and a half as the hounds and also people on horseback and on foot travelled through the fields and through the woodland here in Surrey, hunting a scent. And that is what makes trail hunting different to hunting, of course, which was banned 20 years ago. Trail hunting follows a scent which was laid, and it's due to be different to scents of other animals to protect the animals that could be in the wildlife there. And earlier on, I spoke to the man whose job it is to lay that scent. His name is Mark Bycroft, and this is what he had to say. Mark, you've got the walkie-talkie ready to set the trail hunters off on their way. Do you want to do the honours?
Matt, you copy? The trail is ready to go.
Well, the hunt is in full swing here. This trail hunt in its second run. It's been laid by you, Mark. Talk me through what you've done today.
So I meet up on a Wednesday, and then today I've been here early. I prep where we're going, just make sure that the farmer is happy and there's no livestock out and that. So I'll be running the lines in a safe area. So as you can see now that the hounds are on the line, I laid that probably about 35 to 40 minutes ago. But there is 2 trail layers out today, and what we've got is a simulation, so we can keep on carrying. But as you can see, the hounds are hunting really well, and as I say, the field and the following behind the hounds, it's all part of a rural scene, and but you need the hounds to do this.
All about the hounds there, Mark saying, and the hounds here settling into their kennels after a busy morning trail hunting. And the kennel manager told me he's worried if the sport was to be banned, the hounds here would sadly have to be put down, as their only real use now is through trail hunting, and the sport that the community here do every single week. They meet up, they socialise, and they ride on horseback. They follow the hunt through the woodland and area here. But that is something that the Labour government said in their manifesto that they are looking to ban. They said in a statement that the government was elected on a mandate to introduce the most ambitious animal welfare plans in a generation, and that is exactly what we will do. They said they're committed to a ban on trail hunting, which is being exploited as a smokescreen to cruelly kill foxes and hares. Well, here they point out that the scent they use is mixed with aniseed to make it very distinctive for the hounds who are trained on this scent to only follow this particular scent and not the other scents of other animals that could be living in the hedgerow and woodland here, to protect those animals and stop them from being hurt. And the locals here want their sport to be protected as a rural tradition rather than threatened by the government.
All right, Will Godley, thank you very much. Fascinating stuff. Right, well, lots of you have been getting in touch. gbnews.com/your say. This is a story about something we were talking about, the medical profession, the NHS, and they said, Cynthia says, our 18-month granddaughter was diagnosed with impetigo and had 3 lots of antibiotics which didn't do anything. When taken to A&E, they found she had eczema, cream sorted it out in 4 days. The paramedic looked up the rash online. I do find sometimes I go to the doctor and I say, oh, this and that, and then they get their phone out and then they start looking. I just think to myself, I could have done that. Yeah. And then they'll refer me to my private medical cover because I pay for that, because I think it's important. And but they look online.
But here's the thing. No human being can be expected to know every single disease that might inflict any other human being. Of course, GPs can expect to know the common ones, but, I mean, no one human can know everything that could possibly go wrong with a human being. But you know what might? Artificial intelligence.
AI. I was thinking I mean, get into that.
If AI can quickly scan everything that has ever happened and read every textbook that has ever been written, I mean, surely it's going to be better at diagnosing.
Well, that's why the NHS West Streeting was saying bring in more of this technology in the NHS. If they did that, my goodness, hallelujah, we'd get to diagnoses of things quicker, although it's not always 100%
Well, that's the thing. There are always going to be cases where it gets something wrong, and then who do the patients sue? I think it's got to be a first point of call rather than a last point of call. But you can clearly get some shortcuts in the system with some use of artificial intelligence.
Well, we'd hope so. Well, it's been fun, Tom.
It has. It's been a hoot. But don't go anywhere, because, of course, there is much more news to come in the day. Much more going on, of course, in international affairs and here at home. And the man to take you through it all...
Well, it'll be Martin Daubney, but don't forget to join me this weekend at 3 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. Martin Daubney's on the way after your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head closer to the weekend, high pressure remains, bringing us a mix of cloud but also some sunshine. Some fairly chilly mornings though, with some mist and fog overnight, and that's what we'll see through the course of the evening. High pressure at first situated out to the west, but notice a few more isobars on the chart just towards the north, so fairly breezy towards the afternoon in Scotland, but these winds will ease away through the course of the night, and it will remain mostly dry across the country. Once again, a mix of cloud. Also some clearer skies, particularly across eastern areas, so a chance we could see some mist and fog here, possibly even some frost across rural areas where we see those clear skies stick around. But most towns and cities in the mid-single figures, perhaps slightly higher under the cloud across parts of the south. Any low cloud or mist or fog soon clearing through the course of the morning, but that is away from western Scotland. Thick areas of cloud will continue to push in from the west, producing some light outbreaks of rain and drizzle. So it's going to be quite a damp day ahead across western Scotland. Northern Ireland, though, and the rest of England and Wales should see a mostly dry and bright start. Any low cloud will lift and clear fairly quickly, and it should allow a rather pleasant day as we head towards the weekend. Probably more sunshine around for many of us if you compare it to this afternoon, but once again some cloud lingering mainly across southern counties. Feeling warm in the sunshine, particularly across the east, not so much across Scotland though, more cloud here, spells of light rain and drizzle continuing. Plenty of autumnal warmth for most of us though, highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius across the southeast, but even eastern areas of Scotland we could see between 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. Once again, those clear skies means things will turn chilly as soon as the sun goes down. A chance of perhaps more widespread fog heading our way into Sunday. But for next week, it will remain dry, settled, plenty of warm weather where we see the sunshine, but otherwise some fairly cloudy skies.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 922.